Are you ready? Do you mind if I speak the truth and it might rub you the wrong way? Is that all right? Okay. Well, let's do this. I know you have coffee and tea in your hand. That's okay. Hang on to it. You got paper, but I want you to respond and repeat with me, okay? You're sitting down. I'm going to sit down. Repeat with me, okay? You ready? And I want you to do exactly what I do and say what I do. Here we go. When you're up, you're up. Stand up. Stand up. When you're down, you're down. But when you're only halfway up, you're neither up or down. Now we're going to do it all together now, simultaneously. Are you ready? Here we go. When you're up, you're up. When you're down, you're down. When you're only halfway, stop. Right there, don't move. Now for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk to you as you are in that position. Are you comfortable? Why? Your legs are burning, right? It's because when you're halfway up, ready, you are neither up or down. You can sit down. The reason I do that exercise is to help all of us understand that when it comes to finances, you can't be halfway. Either you are all in or might as well just forget about it because it's not going to work. The fact that you are here today, to me, indicates that you are all in. The fact that you are giving up a Saturday morning when you could have slept in means that you are all in, that you want to see your finances change. And I applaud you for that. Give yourself a round of applause. Well done. When I spoke this past weekend, one strong impression I received in my heart was this, and I didn't expect to receive this impression, and that is money has a strong connection to our spiritual life. More so than we realize. It's not just a financial thing. It's not just a physical or tangible thing. There is such a strong connection to our spiritual lives more than we realize. The Bible even says that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, right? If our treasure is just in finances and making sure that, we take care of our own money in our own way, then our heart is there, it's not with God. But the moment our treasure is with God, then our heart is with God. And when your heart is with God, guess what? God begins to speak to you. You get to hear His voice. You get to sense His leading. So I realize that money has a very strong spiritual connection, and that's where I want to help you today. And that being said, it wouldn't be worth it if we don't ask God to help us today, right? So let's pray and open up with prayer. Father, we thank you for this morning. We recognize that every penny, every dollar that we have in our possession comes from you. Even though we are there working and earning a wage, but God, you've given us the job or the business or the strength, the mindset, the ability, the wisdom to do what we do. So God, today we just want to say that we surrender it all to you. All that we have comes from you. So God, we want to submit everything at your feet and say, teach us how to steward the resources that you've given to us. So we trust in you today. We look to you. And God, I just know that there are people walking in here today who are facing some impossible situations, that when they see the scale, the positive is so much less than the negative. And there are people wondering, God, how can I ever get out of this situation? And what seems impossible to us, God, you can make a way. You split the Red Sea in half so that the Israelites could walk through on dry land. You opened up the rock so that millions of people could have water in the desert. God, you provided manna from heaven. God, you can provide for us as well in ways that we have never imagined. So God, we thank you for your presence today. And we invite you to work in our financial life, in our personal lives, in our family life, as we submit this to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I think many of you have brought pens, but just in case you don't have a pen, you are welcome to raise your hand, and we have some helpers to pass out pens. So go ahead and slip those hands up. And we have some amazing staff members here to hand out some pens, so they'll come by and give it to you in just a moment. I noticed that many of you were thumbing through the handouts. If you did that already, that's no problem, but you may already feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, what are these numbers? If you feel that way, I just want to put you at ease. Don't worry about it. It will totally make sense. And I can pretty much guarantee that you will walk out of this room understanding what we're talking about. You will walk out of this room with a game plan. You will walk out of this room with the knowledge to put your finances in order. Okay, so I've seen it work. I've seen it do amazing things in my life. It's helped me over the last 8 years. And because of that, I have 2 kids who are going to college, and one just got married. And if it wasn't for this information that God revealed to me through Pastor Bayless, none of that would have been possible. So be at ease. Don't feel like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And I was telling this to a lady earlier, because after I spoke, I think many people felt convicted, right? And compelled to begin to get their finances in order. We have a hand up here too, guys, right in front, yellow shirt. That she felt this sense of urgency. Oh my gosh, what do I have to do? If you feel this urgency, like, oh my goodness, I've made a lot of mistakes and I want to quickly get out and I don't know what to do. And don't make any rash decisions moving forward. Okay, you're here right now. God will take care of you. Just be at ease. Don't make sudden changes or just rash decisions. I want you to know this. God operates out of peace. The enemy operates out of the sense of urgency. So right now, if you feel like, oh my goodness, I got to do something and I got to make a change, and you do erratic moves, know that is not led of God. Okay? So take your time. Enjoy the journey. God's going to walk with you every step of the way, and your journey will look different than mine. But just take it easy. God's going to lead you and help you. He'll give you the knowledge today to know what to do. Fair enough? All right. We talked about 2 steps over the weekend, right? I want to share with you just quickly what the 7 steps are. I'm not going to go into detail of all of them, but at least I want to pave the road so that you know what the 7 steps are. The first step, we talked about saving $1,000, correct? That is the first step. Remember at the very beginning, I had you repeat with me, when you're up, you're up, when you're down, you're down, when you're only halfway up. Don't do things halfway. Don't say, oh, I don't need that. If you don't have $1,000 set aside in a savings account that you're not needing to touch, that it's not allocated for anything, that still is the first thing you need to do. Get this done immediately. Does that make sense? Don't jump over things that you think, oh, that's not a big deal. I'll go to number 2. No. Make sure this happens. Do whatever it takes. Sell something. Have a garage sale. Whatever it takes. Set aside $1,000 in a savings account and don't touch it. That will take care of the flat tire. That will take care of the broken refrigerator. That will take care of the small things. Now, one thing I didn't see over the weekend is if you use that money, let's say one month you have a flat tire, you fix it, it's $100 that you spent. Now you have $900 in there, right? What you need to do immediately is replenish that again. Don't let that dwindle down. If you use it, put it back immediately as quickly as you can. Okay? So you should always have $1,000 set aside. The second step is paying off all of your debt. Okay? Not including your mortgage, every other debt, credit card, card notes, school loans, any other form of debt, you want to pay that off immediately. And then here's the third one. Okay? I'm writing on here, emergency fund. You want to fully fund your emergency account. And what that is, you want to have at least 3 to 6 months of your living expense monthly in that account. If you are a W-2 wage earner, 3 months may be okay. If you are self-employed, you want to have 6 months or more, because if you're self-employed, you know your income can fluctuate, right? So have more. But anywhere from 3 to 6 months is what you should have in a saving. You want to take this $1,000 and build it up to have 3 to 6 months of your monthly expense. So when you go home, do a calculation. I'll show you how to do that later. Look at all of your monthly expenses, all your bills, all your payments, the amount of money you need for food and all of that, your rent, everything combined. Find out what that amount is. If it's $5,000 a month is what you absolutely need, then you want to have it at least 3 months, which is what? $15,000. So you want to take $1,000 and build it up to $15,000 in your bank account, savings account, fixed, no risk, okay? It's not in the stock market. It's in a savings account. Don't worry about interest. You're going to get almost nothing anyway, no matter where you put it. So don't worry about interest. Put aside the $15,000 and leave it there. How would you feel if you had $15,000 setting aside in a savings account that's not allocated for anything? You can take a breath, right? Now, yes, you're thinking, well, John, our trust is in the Lord. Yes, it is. But we still need this. And you and I both know, honestly, that when we don't have that, it causes us to be nervous, right? God says wisdom is to have an emergency fund. So set that aside. So from $1,000, once you pay off all your debt, and once you pay off your debt, what happens? The money that you used to pay for your car note, to your credit card, to your school loan, all of that becomes discretionary income that if you're not careful, is going to happen what? You're going to go on that vacation. You're going to buy that something else. No. Once you pay off your debt, you take that amount that used to go toward debt payment and you put that into an emergency fund every month until this is brought up to the 3 to 6 months of your living expense. Make sense? All right. Number 4, after emergency fund is done, is this. You want to maximize your retirement account. Once you've set aside your $15,000, or if it's 6 months, let's say $30,000. Once that's fully funded, then the next step is to set aside money into a 401k. Does that make sense? The only caveat to that is if your company matches you dollar for a 401k, perhaps there's a little bit of a different scenario because that's free money they're giving you. For every dollar, they're giving you $1. I don't want to say, well, don't do that right now. Your situation may look a little bit different, but assuming that's not the case, you don't need to be putting money into retirement until step 1, 2, and 3 are done. Does that make sense? Don't jump over it. So once step 3 is done, then you want to maximize your retirement account. So have a counselor, somebody that can help you understand how much do you need to have in a retirement account so that when you hit age 60 or 65 or whatever, or even earlier, you'll have enough to live off of. So that's retirement. Number 5 is college fund. Retirement comes before college fund. It doesn't go the other way around, right? Because, yes, college fund is important, but college fund is not going to save you when you retire, right? That's for your kids. So Dave Ramsey says, take care of your retirement first, and then the next step is college fund. I don't want to go into too much detail, but that's the way he has it ordered. Number 6 is pay off your mortgage. And lastly, he says, build wealth and give like never before. The ultimate goal of building your wealth is not so that you can go and that, exquisite vacation, although those are nice. But the ultimate goal is when you want to build wealth so that you can begin to pour into God's kingdom and to give more than ever before. I've heard of people who now live off of 10% of their income and give 90% away. Rather than living off the 90 and giving God the 10, which is great, eventually, you want to get to a place where what if you can give away 90%? You're putting treasures in God's kingdom like never before. That's the ultimate goal. Now, I know some of you guys think, gosh, that's way beyond me. I get it. So that's why I don't want to dwell on that too much. But what I want to dwell on today is right here where most people are at. Steps 2 and 3. How do you pay off debt? And how do you get to that emergency fund? So I want to share with you today 3 financial tools that will help you. You're going to walk away with these tools. Number 1 is this. Zero-based budget. Notice I didn't just say budget. It's called a zero-based budget. Let me ask you, when you hear the word budget, what's the first thought that comes to your mind? Shout it out. I heard restriction, plan, discipline, structure. I still haven't heard the word I'm looking for. There it is. What were you going to say, sir? Freedom, and I heard it over there. Freedom, absolutely. A budget will liberate you. Some of you are thinking, there's no way. Yes, a budget will give you freedom. How? A budget tells you, if you do it right, how much you have to spend for each category. Never once do I go to the grocery store and say, man, I'm not sure if I have money to spend for this today. I've never thought that. Because I know how much I've allocated toward groceries every month, and I know the money is there. So when I walk into the store, I'm not wondering, do I have enough to pay for it? I never do that. Do I have enough to pay for my rent? It's all allocated. So when you know what you have, then it gives you freedom. When I go out to eat with my family, I never wonder, shoot, I shouldn't be doing this because John said you need to save money. No, I know I have X amount allocated for entertainment every month, and I can freely spend it without feeling guilty about it at all. Now, I don't spend 30% on entertainment, so we'll talk about percentages in just a little bit, but it gives you freedom. It liberates you from wondering, do I have it or not? Does it make sense? Let me tell you what a budget is not. A budget is not just keeping track of your income and expenses. It's not just knowing, okay, how much is coming in and how much I spent. A budget is not just a cool app that gives you trends of, where you're spending for entertainment, where you're spending for food. It's not that either. Here is the definition of a budget according to John Maxwell. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Let me say that again. A budget is you telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. We've all experienced the latter portion, right? Man, where did my money go today or this month, right? We've all felt that, but when you have a budget, you are saying, dollar, you're going there, that dollar, you're going over there. So another way to look at a budget or a zero-based budget is this. That you are giving a name for every dollar that comes in your way. So if let's say your gross income is $5,000 a month, let's say. From that you give the tithe, which is how much? $500. And then let's say hypothetically you have the IRS and the state, they take their taxes. Let's say another $1,000 goes out. How much do you have left? $3,500, right? So that $3,500 after tithe, after taxes, is what you have to work with, right? Who has the control of where that money goes? You do. So of that $3,500, for every dollar of it, you are giving it a name. You are saying, you are going there, you are going here, you are going there. Does that make sense? And I'm going to show you how to do that very practically as well. Proverbs 23:5 says, in the blink of an eye, wealth disappears, for it sprouts wings and flies away like an eagle. If you don't steward your funds, if you don't do what's called a zero-based budget, I'll tell you a little bit later why it's called a zero-based budget. If you don't do this, money will fly away. Come on, we've all been there. You go out to eat here, you buy this little thing there, you go out to the movie there, you go to In-N-Out there. Next thing you know, all that's gone, it adds up. Have you ever gone to the grocery store and you get the receipt, you look at the bottom and say, oh my goodness, how did that happen, right? It's a few $100s, you're thinking it would have been like $100, it's $300, right? But you look at all the items, you think, there's got to be a mistake. But you look at that, every item adds up and boom, it's $300 when you thought it was $100, right? That's what happens. If you don't give every dollar a name, it will fly away. That's what a zero-based budget helps you to manage that so that that does not happen. Are you with me? The second step is called a debt snowball method. We're going to talk about that. Paying off debt does not happen by just paying the bare minimum. You are going to be enslaved to that credit card debt for the rest of your life. Minimum payment will not get you out of there. You'll stay there for at least 20 to 30 years. And especially if you keep charging on it, you will never pay it off. So we're going to talk about how to get out of debt much sooner than you think. Does that excite you guys? Okay. And the last one is safeguarding your assets. Safeguarding your assets. I'm going to give you 3 Bible verses, and you may have never thought about it this way, but I believe it applies. John 10:10 says, the thief, there's a thief out there, right? The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. That's John 10:10. John 16:33. Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Psalm 127:1 says, unless the Lord watches over the city, the guard stands watch in vain. What these verses tell me is this: we live in a fallen world and accidents happen, don't they? We cause accidents sometimes, and accidents happen to us. It's just part of living in a fallen world. It will happen at one point in life. There's an enemy who's out to get us as well. He's going to do everything he can in his power to steal what God has rightfully given to you. At the same time, we can rest in the fact that God is watching over us, but we have to do our part. It says, unless the Lord watches over us, the guard stands watch in vain, right? Why is that last part there? We still have to watch. We still have to be vigilant. We have to do what we need to do so that God can use that to protect us as well, right? We can't just say, God, you watch over us, we don't do our part. That's not wisdom. Are you with me? So we need to really talk about safeguarding your assets, because you can do this great. You can pay off all of your debt. You can begin to have wealth accumulating so that you can spend it for God's kingdom purposes. And the enemy say, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to make sure to sabotage that, and all that wealth is going to be done away with. If you don't have this, all of this is a waste. Are you with me? So we're going to talk about that as well. So turn in your handout. We're going to go over the first worksheet. So when you lift over the cover page, the first sheet that you find is a chart. We need to go over this because this gives us a guideline to follow. On the very top, it says, suggested percentage guidelines. Do you see that? You'll see different columns there as well. The first column has $45,000 or less, and it goes on to $55,000, then to $65,000, then to $85,000, and $115,000. Are you with me? Those are different income for the household, not just an individual income. Add your household income. So if you're married, your husband's income. If you're both working, your wife's income. Combine it together, and that's the total. Let's take, for example, $85,000 as your household income between you and your spouse. Good? That's a reasonable amount. That amount is basically $7,083 a month. That's your monthly gross income. Make sense? That's reasonable, right? I think between a husband and wife, I think that's very reasonable. From that, the first item you see below that is what? The tithe. And what's the percentage? 10% off the gross. I hear enthusiasm right here. Fantastic. 10% off the gross, and then taxes, hypothetically 23.5%. That comes off the top. The tithe first. God gets the first portion. The IRS and the state gets the next portion. And then what's left is your net spendable income. Do you see that there? What's the amount in that column? $56,525. Do you see that? That amount translated into a monthly amount is $4,710 per month. Below that now is the percentages. Your housing, do you see that, should be 45%. When it's housing, it's not just your rent. It's not just your mortgage payment or your tax and insurance. Housing in this scenario, 45%, is everything contained for your housing. That's including electricity, your water, your gas bill, your telephone bill, your maintenance. Every expense related to housing should not be more than 45%. Over the weekend, I shared with you that your PITI should be no more than 28% of your gross income, right? That's one way to look at it. 28% of your gross income should be your PITI, or less than 28% is better. But you can also look at it where you add up all of your housing expense, your PITI plus everything else for your housing should not be more than 45% of your, now it's your net spendable. Do you see that? Net, not gross, net spendable. The reason why we got into this major housing crisis a number of years ago is people were getting into a mortgage that was at 50% with just their PITI. 50% PIT, and no wonder they had no money to take care of their house. That's why they got into that crisis. So your housing should be 45%, your food about 11%, your auto about 12%. Now, auto again is not just your car note. That's your car maintenance. That's your fuel for the car as well. At 12%, that's $565 of the net, which was $4,710. So if it's 12%, your payment for your car should not exceed more than $565 if we're using that scenario. Don't be out there getting, a Mercedes and having 30% for your car. That doesn't make any sense. These are just percentages and guidelines to follow. What else is there? Let's go down a little bit further. Entertainment and recreation. What percent do you see there? 5%, not 20%, right? 5% for entertainment and recreation. So that amount is $235. So let's look at that scenario. If your family gross income is $85,000, after tithe, after taxes, you're left with a net of $4,710 per month. So about $4,700 is your net spendable income. What you should be spending for entertainment and recreation and eating out is $235. And if you check your checkbook register or your online statement, you may notice that you've spent quite a bit more. It adds up quickly. So that's another rule of thumb as well. These are just guidelines, okay? If you are a little high on another, you can go a little bit lower on another. That's okay with me. I do that personally. So make some adjustments, but these are guidelines, but it gives you a scenario to follow. You with me? All right, turn over to the next page, and this is where it gets really, really fun. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this on the very top of this next page. And the next page says monthly income and expense. There should be numbers listed there, okay? You see that? It's all filled out, right? So these are a hypothetical scenario that we're talking about. On the very top, I want you to write this down. This is so critical. The purpose of, you don't have to write this part down, but the purpose of this worksheet is this. This is what you write down. Minimize expenses and increase discretionary income. Minimize expenses and increase discretionary income. This one-pager, if you can understand and learn the power of this document, it will do wonders for your life. This is what really set my financial life free. It wasn't until I understood this, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm spending way too much here and there, and no wonder I'm in a mess. But the moment you understand this document and begin to fill it out, whether on the computer or by hand, that's okay, either way, because the next page is a blank one that you can copy and use for yourself. But this document will help you to minimize expenses and increase discretionary income. So let me walk you through this. At the very top, you see gross income per month, correct? How much is the gross income per month? It's $8,000. Again, so let's use that now as our new scenario for your household income combined between husband and wife. Let's say it's $96,000 per year, which is $8,000 per month. Are you with me? The first thing after that is your tithe and your taxes, right? The tithe is how much? And do you see I also put in their offering? I've always given an offering. For me, tithe already belongs to God. God, this is already yours. It's not mine anyway. I'm just giving it right back to you, what belongs to you. But an offering is you freely saying, God, I know I don't have to do this. You've given it to me, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I give always above and beyond my tithe. And for me, that's my way of saying, God, I still trust you more than anything else. My heart is with you more than money. So put in there an offering amount. So you see how much in there for offering? $100, right? Let's just use that as a hypothetical. How much do you see for your taxes? $1,700, a lot, I hear. So $1,700, that's 21% is what I'm using. So after your income of $8,000, your tithe and offering combined $900, your tax and all of that $1,700, what is your net spendable income? Love it, you guys are with me. That is how much you have to work with. Everything below that now is where you need to get to work and find out what is my current spending. So for your housing, do you see housing? What's the total amount for housing? $2,410. How do we come up with that number? That number is a sum total of every other item under housing. So you see there, right? Mortgage or rent, $1,500. Insurance, $75. Taxes. Now that's your property tax we're talking about. So if you own a house, you got tax. If you're renting, there's no property tax. So property tax, let's say, is $350 per month. Electricity, $150. Gas is $50. Water is $30. Sanitation is $30. Your telephone, your cell phone, all of that, $125. Your maintenance may not be something that you have every month, but I always allocate something a little extra so that when something breaks down, I have money for that. So I put in $100. I think these are realistic numbers for today's living here. So if you add all that up, your housing expense is $2,410. Did I lose anybody? Okay. Moving on to food. Food for 4 people, let's say, okay? Husband, wife, and 2 kids, hypothetically. I have there $400. If you have 2 boys, that might be $600. If you have all girls, it might be less, like me. But for me, having 5 girls, it's way more. Girls can eat too. It's way more than $400 for me. Now, when we have food on the table, our girls eat offensively. They grab everything, put on their plate in offense, and then they can take their time and eat. So it's crazy in my household, especially when all the girls are there. So food is $400. Automobile, how much? $739. That's your car payment. Your gas and oil, your gasoline or your fuel expense is $200. Your insurance for your auto, $125. And I'm going to talk about insurance later. It's important that we don't carry California state minimums. I have a feeling some people do that because if you have that, that can totally jeopardize your financial future. We'll talk about that later. So your insurance payment is there. Your license and tax fees, although that's an annual thing, I've allocated there, monthly there. Your maintenance and repair, $75. So the total for your car is how much? Which is 14% of your $5,400. Moving on to insurance. You have life insurance. You have medical insurance. I have disability insurance. If I were to get injured and I can't bring in an income, my family is taken care of. I have disability insurance. So all of that is $345. Let's skip over debt for a moment and go over to number 8, because there's a reason for that. Entertainment and recreation, how much? $300. That's 6% of the total. So eating out a month, let's say $150. Activities and trips, $100. Vacation, let's say you're putting $50 away every month, saving it for a future vacation, not getting into debt now and trying to pay it off on your credit card. You should be taking a vacation with money you've saved up, not money you've gotten into debt for and trying to catch up on. That's not good stewardship. Number 9, clothing, $100. I have girls, so it's more than that. Savings for now, we're going to put 0. Why? Because we're not going to talk about retirement right now because we need to do steps 2 and 3 first. So savings for now is 0 because we're assuming we have $1,000 already saved up, right? We're working to pay off debt. Medical expenses, how much? Miscellaneous is how much? And then you got the toiletries inside of there, all of that. I don't care how you do this and what works for you. But whatever works, but you have to make sure you have it down on paper. For me, I don't have like toiletries and all of that in miscellaneous. For me, I have it all under food. Because when I go to this grocery store, I buy my food and I buy toilet paper and all of that together. Does that make sense? So for me, I have one amount, thank you for that. I have one amount set aside for that and I just put it all there. If you want to be more meticulous, that's fine. just do food as food and do miscellaneous. You can do all of that, but it's got to work for you. Are you with me? Let's go back to number 7, which was debt. Okay, this is where the magic happens, okay? It will, when you get this, it's gonna like, oh my gosh, I get it. Credit card, how much? $142, okay? But when you look at the debts, the total amount, what do you see there? $686. Notice under credit card, you see an item that says debt snowball. Do you see that? How much is that? $544. Where did I pull out the number from? I'm not expecting you to understand. It's just quiet. I just wanted to see if there's anybody that really is way ahead of the game here. I'm sorry? You're making bigger payments, yes. But how did I come up with this? This is how. This is where the name zero-based budget comes in. You have your net spendable income of how much? $5,400. On the bottom, do you see expenses? How much is your total expenses? $5,400. So when you have a net income of $5,400 and net expense of $5,400, at the end of the month, what's your net result? Nada, right? Zero. So your income and your expense is completely balanced. That's where you get the term balanced budget. Your income, your expense is balanced. It's not like your income is here, but your expense is way here. Then it's imbalance like the U.S. government, right? That's the problem we're in. Our expenses are way more than our income. But in this scenario, your income, your net income after tithe, after taxes, right? That's all before, all of that is before this. But once that's done, the $5,400 is your net spendable income and your expenses $5,400, hence the name zero-based budget. It's a zero net result when the month is done. Are you with me? Having said that, that is how you get the $544. Because if you do this exercise meticulously and write down every dollar amount that's on here, okay? And you add it all up, the goal is to, like we said at the beginning, minimize expenses and increase discretionary income. You're trying to find money that normally flies away. The moment you put these numbers on paper, you can realize, oh, there is money to work with, and I've found $544. How I found that is by putting all those numbers down, I added up. Without the $544, all of my expenses was $4,856. That number isn't in your scenario, but you can write that down. That $4,856, what that number signifies is all of your housing, your food, your automobile, your insurance, your credit card payment, all of your expenses combined equals $4,856. The difference between the $5,400 net income and the $4,856 is the $544 amount. I still see a little confused faces. Who needs another explanation of that? Raise your hand. That's okay. All right, cool. So, is anybody confused about the $5,400 net income? That's easy, right? We know. That's black and white. It is what it is. Because most of us, if you're wage earners, you have set income coming in every month, right? Hopefully it doesn't fluctuate every month. So you know in this scenario, your net income is $5,400. You got that, right? Next month you can count on that. The next month you can count on that. It's not going to waver, right? It's this expense section that gets us into trouble. We're trying to write down as accurately as possible numbers that are realistic for our situation, how much we're spending every month. If you do this exercise thoroughly and write everything down, but if you miss something, it doesn't work. You have to put everything down on here. That's why I don't like for you to leave things blank. So fill it out as thoroughly as possible. And when you add that up, so in this scenario, if you add all of these expenses together, that amount is $4,856. Trust me on that, okay? If you add it up, that's the number. The reason I have net expense as 5,400 is I was able to take that amount of 4,856, compare that to my net income of 5,400. That shows me that there's actually still $544 a month that's unspent. Does that make sense? 5,400 income net. My expenses are 4,856. That's what I wrote on paper, right? 5,400 minus 4,856 is 544. Does that make sense? So I found, by doing this exercise, 544 a month. With me? Without this exercise, that 544 sprouted wings and flew away. I guarantee it. Every month, you will never find that money. It will disappear in a heartbeat. It'll go to that movie theater. It'll go to In-N-Out. It'll go to going out to wherever. It happens. I'm telling you, especially if you're using a card, a credit card. It's so easy to swipe that thing, you forget. If credit card is your issue, stop using it right away. Don't use credit card. Use your Versatel card or your Visa card for your that's attached to your checking account. Don't use a credit card. By putting everything down on paper, I've just found 544. So this exercise, like I told you at the beginning, you're trying to minimize expenses and increase your discretionary income. You're on the hunt to find money. With me? By doing this, I found 544. Now, when I first did this, I was so gung-ho about it that I was very conservative with my numbers. And I realized, oh my goodness, I can't survive off of that with a family of 7. It took me 6 months to really find a balance that worked out for me. So the first go around, don't feel bad if it doesn't work out the first month. And you realize, man, I allocated $5 for food for a family of 2. It's not going to work. All right, I know you're trying to find money, but you have to eat. You can't live off of $5 of food a month, okay? You have to be realistic. Are you with me? But don't go overboard either. Try to tighten your belt. The family that I told you about, the husband and wife that came to me and now they're financially independent on paper and they're making it work, they tightened their belt. They realized they're spending way too much in fast food and going out to there. I said, look, I know it's convenient, but by doing that, it's not going to work. You will constantly go under. So they made their adjustment. They said, okay, I know now how much I need to spend for going out to eat. So you got to make that adjustment. Tighten your belt and try to find as much extra income here that you can allocate toward paying off your debt. That 544 is the key to getting out of debt. Without that 544, you're going to be enslaved to debt for the rest of your life. Now, does everybody understand now zero-based budget? Net income, net expense, it's a balance budget, zero net effect at the end. And you found the 544 by taking the income minus the actual expense, and you've isolated 544, right? And that money, you're not going to spend it on such and such, right? That money is going toward paying off debt, correct? I think some light bulbs are going on in the room today. You know, I've seen advertisements come to this seminar and you can pay off your debt miraculously and buy my system and you'll be out of debt in 2 years. That's all a bunch. Some may work, but it's the same thing. Debt does not pay off miraculously on their own. There's no magic formula where all of a sudden you wake up next year and you're debt free. No way. It doesn't exist. If people promise you that, run away, okay? It doesn't work. The only way to pay off debt is for you to find that 544, or whatever your amount is, find that, isolate it, and then you say, I'm going to tell you to go and pay off that debt every month. And you are in control and you're telling that money to go there. Because when you do that, you know you have the money for housing, right? It's allocated here. You got $2,410 allocated. For food, you know you can go to the grocery store. You have $400 allocated. So when you go to the grocery store now, you're not saying, man, do I have the money for it? You know you have it because on paper, it's there, right? And at the end of the month, it's going to balance out if you follow this strategy, okay? Now, this is the bad news. And this is where I have to tell you the truth, and I got to be so honest with you. Yeah, oh my goodness. Some of you guys are going to go home and fill all this out, and you're going to get very depressed. It's the reality. Because you're going to see your net income. Up to that point, you're going to be happy. I have that amount. I'm following. I'm doing it. But the moment you put down all your expenses, you're going to see that it's higher than your income. And then you're going to go back to pay and say, oh man, I know I need to cut back somewhere. But where? And you're going to look there and say, there's nothing I can cut back. I've done everything to cut back. And I'm still negative by $300 a month. What do I do? This is where I have to do some truth telling, okay? Dave Ramsey says this in his book, which I absolutely thought was a brilliant analogy. So if you go up to Alaska, Canada area, there's lumberjacks, right? They cut down trees, they float the timber down the river, and it goes down to the processing mill. That's where the wood gets milled and sold off, right? It's a beautiful system. Cut it down, float it down the river. No manpower there, it floats down, gets processed, and people make money, right? But what happens often, because rivers are not straight, they're curvy, right? You're floating all this timber down the river, and all of a sudden, things stop. What's that called? A log jam, right? Often you get log jams in the middle of the river, and you got, I don't know how many tons of pressure being exerted, and all this log is just stuck there, right? So have you seen a lumberjack go out to the log jam, get on top, and get a crowbar and try to do this? No, you can't. You can't go to that log jam and get a crowbar or kick it, try to release it. Because if that doesn't get released, nothing flows, nobody makes money, and you're at a standstill, right? What is the only way to free that log jam? Blow it up. You can cut more, but that doesn't help because it's not going to get down to the processing plant, right? You have to get a stick of dynamite or 2 or 3 and blow that thing up. The moment you blow it up, there's enough energy there to free things and get it going down again. Does that make sense? But you might think, well, you're going to lose like a couple dozen logs. So what? The key is to get it flowing. You have to take drastic measures. You can't expect to get out of this scenario by, okay, I'm going to cut back my Starbucks that I have every month. You might save $150 by doing that, but that's not going to get you out of debt. Are you with me? Some of you have to take some drastic measures. You have to take responsibility. Rather than paying $1,800 in rent, you might need to, for a season, squeeze into a place that a one-bedroom smaller and say, I'm going to pay $1,400 a month. Some of you may have to say, for a season, I may sell my car and ride my bike to work for a season. That's drastic measures. By doing things like that, you'll find $400 here, $300 there, $500 there. By taking that kind of a measure, that's how you free your money to get things flowing again. Does that make sense? Now it's really quiet in the room. That's the truth. You can't expect to get out of this scenario by not taking drastic measures. But you know what the beauty of it is? When you're giving God the tithe, right? When you take these drastic measures and you tighten your belt and you make some significant adjustments to your lifestyle, who's watching? God's watching. God is saying, man, way to go. You're willing to cut back and go from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom for a season to make this work. You're willing to be a good steward. I can bless that. And God will allow you to live that out for a season. And then all of a sudden, God will open up another door. Wow. That's how He works. Make those adjustments and God will help you. Does that make sense? All right. Now, let's transpose this into this chart. And it's on the last page of your handout. Flip there. It's the Excel sheet that's got a bunch of colors. I was telling my wife this morning as I was coming here, this chart has been in many smaller seminars, never one this size. And I expect the guys in the back, you can read this, right? Okay. That's why I gave it to you in a handout sheet. I'm going to refer to this. You don't have to expect to read it, but it's all on paper there. Just know where I'm sort of pointing to, okay? This is how this works. Now also, I'm going to email to all of you guys all of these documents in electronic format as an Excel and a PDF. So the PDF you can print out. Excel, you can actually punch in your numbers if you like computers. The formulas are all in there, and it'll add it up for you, okay? All right. And then this will also be on there. I'm telling you, this right here has rocked my world financially. I follow this still. It's been 8 years I've been doing this. My wife knows. She sees the way I do this. I punch in things every month, every week, sometimes every few days I work on this because it's so much fun for me. I'm a nerd, okay? That's just the way God wired me up. Now, if you don't like this kind of stuff, you can either choose to like it because you know the benefit, or hopefully your spouse likes it and they can do it. But you got to be on it together, okay? This has to be done together. Now, the numbers that you saw on that previous document, right, is all here on this Excel sheet. The gross income, $8,000. You see that? Tithes and offerings, I combined it there. You see that? Taxes, you see that. Net spendable income is how much? So anything in blue is your income. All right? That's the key. Anything in blue is your income. Anything in white is your fixed expense or semi-fixed, pretty much fixed. They're not going to fluctuate that much. So fixed is your tithes and offerings is fixed, right? That's every month you're doing that. That's the first. Taxes, oh yeah, that's fixed, right? That's not going to change. Housing, look at that section. What's the total amount? $2,410. Same as the other worksheet. The same numbers are on here. Mostly white because they're fixed, right? Your telephone bill is a telephone bill. Your water bill may fluctuate, but it's pretty fixed. It's all in white. The purple you see there, what is that category? Maintenance may not happen every month, right? But I have it under housing for $100 a month, so I can have it aside. So when something does happen with my water heater, I have money that I'm putting away for that. That's just the way I do it. So that's in purple. If you look at the purple on the key, that's irregular item. That's just my way of calling it. So housing is $2,410. The next item is food, right? Is yellow. Yellow, I have it called envelope system. That's Dave Ramsey's term. Anything that's yellow is an envelope system. Anything that's yellow is where we can get derailed if we're not careful. So what's yellow? Food, gasoline, entertainment, clothing, and miscellaneous. Everything else is all white, and there's one item that's green. What is it? Debt snowball. What's the amount? Does that number look familiar? It's the same number we've been talking about. The money you found, right? Okay. So any questions on the white? It's fixed expenses. That's pretty simple, right? Purple. It's your irregular things such as your maintenance for your house, your car, license and taxes, your maintenance and repair. That's purple. Medical expense, number 11. That may not be a monthly thing. That may happen every so often, right? So that's purple as well. Let's talk about the items in yellow. The envelope system. Now, some of you may want to physically use an envelope. You may want to use a yellow manila envelope and write on the outside each of these categories. One for food, one for gasoline, one for entertainment, one for clothing, one for miscellaneous. If you want to add more, you're welcome to. If you know there's other problem areas that you want to allocate, you're welcome to do it, okay? Just make sure it's in this system. Once you write on the envelope what it's for, every month, on the first of the month, put that dollar amount in cash into that envelope. So come February 1st, I'm going to put $400 cash into that yellow envelope, right? The next one, gasoline, I'm putting $200 cash into that envelope. When you have that money allocated, and obviously you're going to keep it in a safe spot, right? So your neighbor doesn't come and steal it. So you have it, and so when you go to the grocery store, you get which envelope? The food, right? You don't take the whole envelope, okay? That will be tacky. True story. One time, in your car, in your little ashtray, you keep coins in there, right? I needed to buy coffee. I had no cash. I took the tray, went to the coffee, and I gave it out of there. And the guy said, "Man, you're tacky." I never did it again. All right. So you take that cash, the $400, you go to the store, and you buy your food. When you start using cash, guess what happens? As you start laying down those 20s, it's like, do I really need that? No, I'm going to put that back. I don't need that either. I'm going to put it back. But when you swipe, it's like, oh, no problem. Just swipe and you walk away. The moment you start using cash and you know you have $400 to work with, you get very defensive about what you're spending, right? So you take that cash, you spend it, you bring the remaining back home, and you stick it in the envelope. The next time you go to the grocery store again, 2 weeks later, you take that cash and you go again. Does that make sense? Whatever you have left over, you put it back. If you use it all, so I'm going to be tapped, somebody said. If you use all of it, you're done for the month. Do your best to not use any more. Go to your pantry and get those old canned food that you haven't used for a long time to make some soup and survive. That's the kind of discipline you need to have to make this work. The moment you do all this and you spend your $400, you say, man, I'm done. Oh, you know what? I'll just use another $200. You derail everything. You stop at the $400. Now, at the first few months, like I said, there's going to be a learning curve. If you've allocated $5 to that, it's not going to work. You need to increase it, right? So make sure you find that balance. But once you find a balance that works as a zero-based budget, then stick to it. Don't spend any more. Okay, do whatever it takes to just spend that amount only and don't go above that. Are you with me? Yes. Now, what do you do if you have money left over? It's great. Don't spend that somewhere else. Keep it in that envelope, and then the next month, March 1st comes along, I take another $400, put it into that envelope, and let's say there was $50 left over, right? Then you have $450 in that envelope. Keep that going every month, because not every month do you spend the same amount, right? Next month, your cousin may come over for 2 weeks, and you need that $50 to pay for his food, right? So keep that going on a monthly basis. Just make sure you don't go negative and take from somewhere else. Are you with me? Do that same for food and gasoline, entertainment, clothing, and miscellaneous, and irregular as well. Put money in there. Even if you don't spend it, the irregular item total comes out to be $295. Every month, you may want to sock away $295 into an envelope that says irregular, so that when that water heater goes out, you're not tapping into your emergency fund, but you're going into that irregular fund because you put money there because you know there's maintenance issues for homes. So you go there and you take that cash, you buy that new water heater. Are you with me? So you keep this envelope system going. Now, some of you guys may not want to operate all cash like that. Then what you can do, this is what I do. I use this Excel sheet. This is the exact thing I have on my computer. I can pull it up at any time and look at it. When I buy something, I keep every receipt. I keep that $4 receipt that I spent at the grocery store to buy a couple sticks of gum. I keep every receipt and I bring it home and I stick it in my drawer. My family knows this. They know exactly where to go. All my receipts are there. And every few days, I'll go through those receipts and I'll plug it in to this section. And I put in the number and it automatically tallies it for me and keeps a running balance on the bottom. Does that make sense? That's the way I do it because I don't want to carry on cash. But you can do whatever works for you. But either way, the principle is the same. You're using that allotted amount. You're telling your money where to go. You know you have $400 in that envelope, so when you know you need to go to the grocery store, you're not wondering, right? Do I have money? You know you have the money in that envelope. It's there for you because you've told it to go there. You with me? So whether you use a physical envelope or that spreadsheet, either way is okay. But if you're going to use a spreadsheet, here's the trick. You have to keep your receipts. If you don't keep your receipt, none of this works. Because with the envelope system, you don't necessarily have to keep your receipts. Although it's good to keep it, because what I do is I tally up all the taxes I spent in all of my purchases, and I write that off when I file my taxes. Did you know you can write off your taxes that you spend? So my wife and I go through this tedious exercise every year. We got to do it again. We add up all of our taxes we spend on receipts, and I give that to my accountant, and he writes it off because it's a tax that I paid. Anyway, I don't want to go off that tangent. But anyway, that's why I keep my receipts as well. But when you have cash, you don't have to. When you have cash, you don't have to keep a receipt because you go by how much is in there, right? When it's gone, you know you're done. But when you're not using an envelope and you're using the spreadsheet, without the receipt, and you don't plug those numbers in, you're going to think, I still have $400. Next week, you spend money, no receipt. Hey, I still have $400. You're going to keep spending. You can't keep track. So if you can't get into the discipline of keeping your receipts and plugging it in, then it's not going to work for you. You have to keep your receipt and plug it in. Are you with me? This is now where we jump into the debt snowball. The green is the 544, right? Okay. Look at this section of the chart. It says debt snowball method, right? You'll see 5 different debt items. What are they? Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Best Buys, Visa, and an auto payment, right? And you'll see next to it a total payoff. What is one thing that you can notice about the way that this list is made? Yes, the smallest one is at the top. The biggest one is at the bottom. Some of you who are mathematicians might be saying right now, well, John, that's maybe there's a better way. Why don't you put the ones that have the highest interest on the top and put the ones with the smallest interest on the bottom, right? Wouldn't that be better? To which I would say, well, if you were that smart, you wouldn't be in this mess anyway. So forget that. It doesn't matter right now. Because if you really knew what you're doing, you wouldn't need my help. So just do what I say. And this is what Dave Ramsey, not what I say, what Dave Ramsey says. Just do what Dave Ramsey says. Put the smallest item on top and the largest item on the bottom. And by doing that, something miraculous happens. You pay off that one card that may have had an $850 balance. When you pay that off, what happens? It's like, whoa, I got one knocked off. One down, 4 more to go. Like how I say with my daughters, one down, 4 more to go. I got one of them's gone. It builds momentum. It gives you energy. It's like, I can do this thing. All right? So notice the minimum payment. Here's the key here too. Minimum payment, $8 for the Macy's, $37 for the Bloomingdale, Best Buy's $45, Visa $52, and auto payment $289. Excluding the auto, if you pay these minimum payments for everything else, you'll never pay it off. That's the minimum payment. That's like, it's basically 1% of the balance. By paying 1%, and then they tack on interest every month at like 18, 24%, right? That's an annual interest rate. They tack that on. You'll never pay it off. So by paying the minimum payment, you will never get out of debt except the auto. Eventually, after 4 or 5 years, you get out of debt. Are you with me? Okay. This is where you take the 544. The 544 that you found by doing that tedious exercise, but it's so important. You found the 544, right? Does anybody have any questions where that number came from? Everybody should know where the 544 came from. You should be dreaming the number 544 tonight, okay? 544, that's the amount of money you found from that exercise by going through that worksheet, right? I didn't lose anybody, right? Okay. That 544 that's right here, right? That you know you have the money for. And when you put it all together, look at the very bottom. Net spendable income is $5,400. Total expense is $5,400. What is that called? A zero-based budget, what you see right here, right? Right below that, it says, give every dollar a name, or of your income a name before the month begins. You're saying to every dollar, you're going here, 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 right? and you've put aside 544, right? And at the end of the month, you're not going to go negative because you're following this system, right? So every dollar, you know where it's going, correct? That 544, you take that and you add it to the $8 payment. 544 plus 8 becomes 552, right? That 552, you pay that toward that Macy's card the first time. The second month you pay that Macy's card is gone. Are you with me? That's the power of this system. That 544 is what gets you out of debt. Yes, the Lord will help you. He'll give you wisdom. He'll open up doors for you. He may open up additional income for you as you're following this. But when that additional income comes, you're not changing these numbers, okay? The only number that extra income should go to is where? That 544 should go up by that amount you got to raise for. Because if you take that raise and you spend it somewhere else, this is not going to work. The goal is to get out of debt as quickly as possible. In Romans it says, owe no one any debt. The goal is to get out of debt. So if you get a raise, you get that bonus, right? Whatever extra income comes in, you tack that amount and you put it to the 544 and you knock out that first debt. Are you with me? So in the past, by paying the minimum, you would have never got out of debt. By taking the 544, the Macy's card is done in 1.5 payments, right? So consider that 2 months. Then you take the 552, now you have 552 available, right? Because $8 is gone. Take 552, add it to the 37, now it's 589. Are you with me? That 589 payment, when you apply to the Bloomingdale's of 3,700, and I got to say this, you're not using these credit cards anymore, right? The balances are not going up. You've ripped them up or you've whatever, right? You burned them, whatever. That balance should not go up because if those balances go up, this isn't going to work either. You've committed to draw a line in the sand and you say, God, I'm not going to get into debt anymore, right? Okay, so $589 every month, you pay off that Bloomingdale's in 6.3 payments. So 6.5 payments, you're done with the Bloomingdale's, gone. You take the $589, you add it to the next one. Are you getting the picture here? You take the $589, add it to the $45 minimum payment that you are paying, and it's $634. Okay? And then you're going to be done with that debt in 7 months. You take the $634, add it to the next one of $52. You pay $686 toward your Visa. You're done in 7.5 months. You take that $686, add it to your car payment of $289. It's $975. You are done with a car payment in 9 payments more. You are totally out of debt in less than 3 years. What would have taken, yeah, you can clap for that. What would have taken you an eternity to pay off because you had no idea where the money was going. The money was sprouting wings and flying away. Now you've taken that, you've put a name to every dollar, you put it to a specific area, and you're debt-free in 3 years. Now, I've had this question before, but these minimum payments, where are they allocated? If you look at the debt, credit cards, 142, right? You see that? That 142 is basically your Macy's, Bloomingdale, Best Buy, and Visa all together. So you're already paying your minimum payment, so you're not going into collections, okay? So keep paying your minimum, but what you're doing is you're paying the minimum plus that 544 for the smallest one and get that knocked out. The car payment of $289 is in your automobile payment, $289. It's there as well. You see that? So those are all allocated. The 544 is the extra that you found that you're putting away into paying off these debts quickly. All right. Are you with me? Oh my goodness, it's 10:20. All right. I want to do a little bit of Q&A because we've talked about, everybody understands zero-based budget? Does anybody not understand it? It's okay to raise your hand because I'll explain a little more. Because I told you last weekend, everybody will walk away understanding what needs to be done. You will have the tools and the resources and knowledge. So you understand zero-based budget, right? You understand debt snowball, right? We talked about this because I'm going to keep my promise. We talked about these two. Before we jump into safeguarding our assets, I do want to do a quick 10-minute break to go to the restroom, and you can get some more coffee and tea. But before we jump into that, any questions? Because I have several friends. I have Javon right over there, Holly right over there, Rhonda over there with some microphones. They'll run it over to you. Ask me your question. We'll spend about 15 minutes at most, and I'll answer your questions as quickly as I can. Go for it.
My question is about home equity line of credit to consolidate your debt.
Great question. That's actually what the couple did that I talked about this past weekend. They had $30,000 in debt. They went to a credit counseling agency who can help negotiate a pay down that's accelerated with even a reduction of balance. I'm not for bankruptcies because the Bible says that we are to pay back what we owe. But I have no problem with talking to a creditor and saying, you know, I owe you this, but would you be willing to make a forgiveness for me? You're asking, right? You're not just doing it. You're not saying, I'm not going to pay you and walk away. You're talking about it. I think there's nothing wrong with that. The credit card companies make tremendous amount of money on the interest, but they also want to get their principal back. And if you're negotiating with them, and they say, okay, I know you owe us $10,000, but I'll forgive you $4,000. You owe us $6,000. I'll get you on a payment. And they agree to it, and you agree to it. I don't see a problem with that. But make sure you do it with a highly rated debt counseling agency that you can trust with good referrals. Go check online. Make sure they're what do you call that? Better Business Bureau, BBB rated. Make sure they're highly rated there. And then give them that information. Let them consolidate it. Let them talk to the creditors and negotiate a balance. And they'll put you on a monthly payment. Let's say your monthly minimum payment would have been like $1,000 a month. But they can negotiate it down to be $600 a month. And then you can put that as your minimum payment, right? Because you're paying that every month. But the $544 that you found is what? You take that and you add it on top of that and pay it down even sooner than what was originally discussed. So I'm all for that as long as you do your due diligence and make sure you're getting into a good program that's for your benefit and not for some kind of company that's going to make a huge commission on you. Okay? Next question. Go ahead.
Kind of relating to his question, I heard when you join the debt consolidation program, it lowers your credit score. It hurts your credit score really bad. So
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Yes, so that is one of the downsides of doing that because the company will most likely charge off against your credit what they didn't collect. It will hurt your credit for a time being. But once you pay off all of your debt and you begin to make all your payments for your mortgage and all of that, your credit can improve over time. So that is one factor. So if you don't have to do debt counseling consolidation, don't do it. Just follow the system and pay it off as soon as possible if you're concerned about your credit. But that is one of the downsides of doing that because it will hurt your credit. But it's still better than bankruptcy though. If you do bankruptcy, it will definitely hurt your credit far worse. Oh, back there.
If you owe money to the IRS, how would you attack that debt according to the snowball?
Yeah, I would put it in here just like this. If the balance is the highest, put it at the bottom. And make sure you're paying them. So you should be communicating with the IRS your situation. The IRS, I've talked to them in the past about different matters. If you talk to them, they're willing to talk with you because they want their money. They'd rather have you talk to them and agree to a payment than to disappear and not make a payment. So talk to the IRS and say, I can afford this much every month. I know I owe this much. I can afford this much. Is that acceptable? If they say, no, I can't accept that much, but I'll accept this much, find the middle ground. Get them to give you a document that says, okay, from now on, you're paying this much every month. Then put it into this scenario. If that's the largest balance, pay that agreed upon amount until you pay off everything else. And then with that leftover money, then you can aggressively pay off the IRS. Does that make sense? So I would follow in the same system unless they're going to penalize you every month and that penalty is so big that this doesn't make sense, then you may want to make some adjustments and attack that one first because of the penalties that are going to continue to increase. That may be the only caveat, but I would do it in the same way. Yes, back there.
Yeah, hi. Recently, I just increased my 401k contribution like an extra $600, but I have an outstanding
Per month?
Per month.
Okay.
I have an outstanding balance of on my student loan.
Okay.
Would it be a good idea to reduce that and divert that to the student loan until that's paid off? And then also, are we going to get a copy of the spreadsheet that you?
Okay. Let me ask you: the 401k, does the company match?
The company matches a minimum of 4%.
Okay, dollar for dollar, up to 4%.
Dollar for dollar.
Okay, so that's where it could be slightly different. Following this system truly to the T, Yes. The answer to your question is yes. Don't put money into your 401k. If you have $1,000 saved up, the next thing is pay off debt. School loan is part of that. Take that $600, pay off your school loan as quickly as possible, and then get your emergency fund up. And then it's retirement. But in your scenario, it could be a little bit different. The company is matching. You may want to talk to a financial consultant and ask them, what should I do? They're matching a dollar for dollar up to 4%. You might want to do that and then take the difference they don't match and pay it off. So it could look a little bit different. So you may want to get a financial advisor involved in that question.
Okay, thanks.
Mike right here.
All right. Your example, you did a fixed W-2 income. where
Yes.
it's the same. What would you suggest as far as, like myself, I do a base plus commission?
Yes.
And my commission varies each
Yes.
month. So how would I set my plan up?
So are you talking about for income, right?
Correct.
Okay, for income, if you are a commissioned, I was commissioned for 5 years doing real estate financing. What you want to do is look over the last 3 years, your gross income, right, over a 3-year period, and take the lowest amount if you want as your average, to be your base for how much income to expect for that year. Or just average it out and take an average amount. But coupled with that, you need to make sure your emergency fund is bigger than most. I said 3 to 6 months. When I was self-employed, I had 12 months. Because I knew there are times when the real estate market can go up and down. I may not close a deal for 3 months. If you have 12 months of your monthly expense set aside in a savings account, then you know even if you have no income for the year, you can still survive. Does that make sense? So if you're self-employed and your income fluctuates dramatically, the more it fluctuates, be more conservative. Use the lowest amount as a projection for income and have a larger emergency fund. Does that answer your question? Okay. Over there.
Okay. Last week you said like don't get student loans or anything, but what if you're going?
I
to
didn't
law?
say don't get student loans. I said debt is your enemy. If you have a student loan, try to pay it off as soon as possible.
Okay.
But if you let me finish. I didn't want to sound so abrupt. My girls have. I'm really glad you brought that up. When I send my kids to Biola, there's no way I could pay for all of that. There's just no way. But my kids have our mode of attacking the college tuition is fivefold. I've been saving money since they were little into a 5-9 plan. Ever since they were like 5 years old, I put money aside every month. That's one way. I'm taking money from that. Another is they have to work. So my kids work in the summertime. They contribute $2,000 to $3,000 every year to pay for their tuition. Bucket number 2. Number 3 is what I can pay into it. I have a set amount. Another one is their scholarship. They were blessed to receive a decent scholarship from Biola, which helps a lot. The last is a student loan. Personally, I know Dave Ramsey, I think he may even say, student loans stay away from. But I believe in the Biola education. I believe in that value. The value is so high that I believe it's worth getting into with a school loan. But I told my kids, you're not walking out of there with $100,000 debt. We're making sure that you come out after 4 years with no more than $25,000 debt. We put a cap on it. So before you get into a student loan, if you really believe in that education, you want to go there, get into a student loan, but make sure you have a cap that you are comfortable with. Don't keep borrowing, because if you keep borrowing, they're going to keep giving you loans. You're going to fund the whole thing. You're going to walk out with $100,000 plus, and that's like a mortgage payment. Don't fall into that pitfall. So if you can stay away from it, do it. But if you believe so much in that education, get a student loan like my kids did, but make sure you put a cap on it so you walk out after 4 years with no more than a certain amount. So my daughter, my first one, graduates this coming spring or summer. She's coming out with $20,000 school loan, less than what we had projected. So have an exit strategy before you get into it. Because if you go into it blindly, you'll come out with this massive loan that is going to be crazy to pay off. Does that help? Awesome. Yes.
I wanted to know what is better, to get a home,
Can you speak into the mic, please?
get a home equity line of credit, or to restructure your home when you have a student loan and other debts to consolidate, and your rate is very low on your mortgage right now, like it's a 3%.
So you have a student loan, you have a mortgage, and you're asking, what is the question?
Yeah, and I have some other credit
So what is the
debt.
question?
I want to know which one is better, to get an equity line?
I am
Or-
not in favor of expanding your debt.
Okay,
I'm in favor of doing this as much as you can without getting into any more debt. Now, if you want to open up an equity line of credit against your house to pay off the credit card debt that has a higher interest, I think I've done that in the past. I think if it makes sense with the interest payment and plus your equity line, you get deductions on your taxes, right?
correct.
So as long as you're not, this is the danger. If you build that, you get that equity line of credit for $100,000, right? I'm telling you, the temptation is going to spend that to fix up your house. That's where the danger is. If you can promise that if you have $50,000 of credit card debt hypothetically, and you're paying like 12% interest, and you get that home equity line at 5%, and you promise to pay that off and transfer it to your home, and you can pay that down, I think that's acceptable, although there is a risk though. If by increasing your debt against your house, if you don't make the payment, what happens? They foreclose on your house. Whereas over here, they don't foreclose on your house because you're making your mortgage payment. So there's risks on both sides. For that question, I can't say do one or the other. There's pros and cons to both. You're going to have to really pray about it and talk to a financial advisor, take their advice on what to do in that scenario. But purely from a number standpoint, interest to interest and tax savings, that makes sense number-wise, but there's a risk factor that you have to consider. So don't just jump into it. I think you need to take some time.
So what I'm saying is that on my mortgage, right now, the loan on my mortgage is at 3.5%.
Yep.
If I consolidate everything and just restructure my mortgage,
Your first mortgage?
yes,
Okay.
would that be more sound than to get?
Numbers-wise, with interest, yes, it makes sense. But again, you're expanding your mortgage. You got a higher debt. What if something happens and you can't pay your mortgage payment because of the higher payment? Then you lose your house. The other scenario, you don't lose your house necessarily.
Okay.
So there's definite risks, and I'm not in favor of increasing more debt against your house because that's really where, bottom line, you need your house to live in, right? Okay. So
Thank you.
that one I think needs to be answered more strategically with a financial advisor. Right.
Hi, so in regards to the debt snowball with your credit score, as you pay off each credit card, is it a good idea to close them out or leave them open?
Okay. The way, yes and no. I think there's no harm. Remember I told you that having no credit doesn't hurt you. But having bad credit can hurt you in the future, right? So if you already have poor credit because of some missteps in the past, when you close your credit card, what happens is the credit score is based upon what's called limit to debt ratio. Let's say between all your credit cards, your limit hypothetically is $20,000, right? If you have a zero balance on all of it, your credit to debt ratio is zero because you owe nothing to how much you have available. But if you owe $20,000 on a $20,000 limit, your debt to credit ratio is 100%. You're maxed out. That hurts your credit. But by closing a credit card, that credit limit disappears. So then your debt to credit limit is going to be even tighter because you're getting rid of credit availability. So if you want to restore your credit, my recommendation is leave it open, tear it up, but don't use it. Leave it open, and then if you really want to fix your credit, what you can do is once everything's paid off, if you promise not to go into debt, if you use that credit card, make sure you pay it off every month. Now, Dave Ramsey is going to say no to that because he doesn't accept credit card on his website. I understand why, because it's such a pitfall. The moment he does, it opens people up to credit. I personally use my credit card and I pay it off every month, but that's me. I'm not saying do that, okay? So for your scenario, to build your credit, you want to use it and pay it off every month. Use it and pay it off every month. That's how you build back your credit. But if you have it in your heart, you know what? This is an issue that I've struggled with, and I don't want to have that open to me. Get rid of it. Close it. Don't worry about your credit because you're not going to need credit because you're going to live on a cash basis, right? So yes and no. Do what you feel prayerfully that you want to do, but that's how you build your credit back.
Over here.
Yes?
What do you think about pulling a little off of your 401k to pay off a credit card balance? And then one more question.
Yeah.
You commented on keeping your receipts and totaling the taxes that you paid and
Yeah.
writing it off?
Yeah.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Can you go
So-
over that? Thank you.
Well, if you file your own taxes, I don't know, because I don't file my own taxes. I have an accountant that the church used to use a long time ago, and he's been doing my taxes all along. So my receipts, when you buy something, most often there's a tax, right? Not always. Sometimes it's tax-free. You pay, yes, the tax, 9%, whatever the percentage is. So I keep all of my receipt, and I add it all up, all the taxes. So let's say in 2016 for filing, I'll say to my accountant, here's all of my receipts, and here's how much taxes I pay. I pay $3,000 in sales tax. He'll put that into my tax filing, and that becomes tax deductible for me. So talk to your accountant about that, okay? So, because I'm not an accountant, but that's what he does for me, and I believe it's totally legit. Because, that's what's his phone number. The other one is 401k. Borrowing money against your 401k, I'm not sure because I don't know the scenario. What kind of interest? What's the payback plan? And I'm never in favor of borrowing money to pay something off. I'd rather you pay it off as quickly as you can. I'm not sure where you went. Who am I talking to? Oh, I'm not in favor of borrowing. But again, like the other question about borrowing, putting against your home equity, it could make sense depending on the situation, but it may not. So again, talk to your financial advisor about that and get all the pros and cons. So I don't think there's not going to be a solid, this is a perfect decision. It may be a better decision, and it may have some downfalls, but if you're willing to live with some of those negatives, but if it's a better decision, you can do that, but let your financial advisor advise you on that. Because I don't know the scenario, the payback, the interest, and all of that for 401k. Yes, over here. Who's got the mic?
I have a question. You said that there was good debt, such as your mortgage.
Mortgage is the only thing that Dave Ramsey will say is positive. It can be positive debt for you.
Say I did all 7, and I'm ready to open up a business.
Okay, so you've done all 7, right?
I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm imagining.
Okay, I love it. There's a woman of vision right there. So you have no more mortgage, okay, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Okay, you're here, step number 7.
Really, that's the question.
All right.
Before I open up a business and take out a business loan, do I need to complete
I don't believe
all
in business loan.
Okay, so do I use that snowball money and fund my business? How do I get the money to pay for a business?
If you're truly, okay, so let's start here real quick. $1,000 set aside. You paid off all your debt except your mortgage, right? You built your emergency fund, so you have $15,000 to $30,000 or $50,000 in a savings account, hypothetically, right? That money is untouched. That's a reserve for you for a rainy day. You're not touching that $50,000. It's not going for a business either. That's an emergency fund. Let's follow the system. And then you put money into retirement. Every month you're putting X amount that your financial advisor said, that's how much money you need to set aside so when you retire at whatever age, you'll have enough to survive. So that's fully funded, okay? And then you've paid off whatever college, you're taking care of college fund. All your mortgage is paid off. You have no debt against your house. You're living in a house free and clear, no debt whatsoever. And you're still working, right? So all that income is coming in. That's where I can't advise you on that, but that's where you're going to talk to a godly financial advisor that's going to advise you how to store wealth and possibly live off of 10% and give 90% for kingdom work. I mean, that's what you want to be doing. So if you want to open up a business using the money that's coming in from your current income, great. But don't borrow money to open a business. Because I don't know the statistics, but a high percentage of businesses will fail in 5 years. If that business crashes, what are you going to do with that debt? That debt is against you now. Now you owe money. You got to start all over again from the beginning.
Okay, I know a few people that go to this church that have franchises.
Okay.
Franchises cost millions sometimes of dollars to open up. Did they save, or do you know of any personal instances where they saved all that money, or did they have to borrow?
I don't know. And I think there are scenarios when people have obtained a business loan, open up a franchise, and they pay it back. I understand that. It can work, but understand the risks. So make a prayerful decision. If you don't have to go that route, that's the best scenario. Should you go that route, that's between you and God and a godly financial advisor that can show you all the risks and benefits around that. If you're going to do that, put the biggest down payment possible. Instead of putting 20% down and financing 80%, put 80% down and finance 20%. Then you have so much equity that chances are you're not going to get into trouble. It's when you over leverage. If you finance 100% of the business, then that business slows down. You can't make the payment. You're stuck. Remember, God operates on a cash basis. It's better to pay things cash than to borrow money. Okay? Over here.
Quick question, John. If you have a credit card and then you paid something that says zero balance, but I know you said that you wanted an order from lowest to highest.
Yeah.
Let's just say that I'm not going to be able to pay it off in 12 months and my interest is going to increase. Do I bump that up to my list even though it's not from lowest to highest? Because, of course, my minimum payment, they're saying, okay, it's 25 because that's what they're asking. But if you don't pay it off in this time, it's going to increase to 150.
Yeah, so if there's a negative by not paying more than the minimum, you might want to make some adjustment. That's where you have to think a little bit and say, okay, what's the best scenario for me? But assuming that you can continue paying the minimum payment, then keep doing that and follow that method. But if there's a penalty for doing that, then you might want to make some adjustments so that you don't incur additional debt from that penalty. Make sense? Let's do this. It's 10:41. I'm going to take one more question, and any other question, email me. I will make sure to respond to you, okay? Promise. I'll respond to your email. So we went here, so let's go anybody in this section, right over here.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'll stick around and answer your questions in person as well, okay?
When monthly statements are forwarded to the credit bureau, they monitor 6 key factors: on-time payments.
Is this a question or is this a comment?
It's a question.
Okay,
It's
let's make it a
coming
question,
around.
okay?
They monitor 6 key factors: on-time payments, oldest credit line, credit used, recent inquiries, new accounts, and available credit.
Yeah.
If paying off your oldest credit line usually hurts you, I mean, what do you say
When you
about
say
that?
oldest?
Yeah, because obviously
Again-
they monitor that
Okay.
on your oldest credit line on time
Again,
payments.
yep. Again, I'm not too concerned about the credit score right now. If your credit score is already messed up, having it messed up a little more is not going to be a big deal, okay? The deal right now is to get out of debt. The more simply you can make things for yourself, the better. So still do the minimum to the biggest. If your credit score gets ruined a little bit in the process, but the moment this is gone, your credit score will recover. Make sense? So follow this system. So let's talk about safeguarding our assets. I want to introduce a longtime friend of mine. He and I have been fishing buddies for a long time. He and Pastor Bayless and I have been out on the water fishing many, many times at Clemente and Catalina. He always catches the biggest fish. The last time we went fishing together, one time we were fishing for yellowtail. He speared a 52-pound yellowtail, and I have a picture of it. I mean, this guy is a man's man. Not only that, what I really appreciate about him, when we first got to be friends through Pastor Bayless, we were on the boat together fishing, and that's how we got to know each other. Never once did he tell me that he does insurance, homeowners insurance, and auto policy. He never brought it up to me until I finally asked him, like later, it's like, so what do you do? And he told me this is what he does. Mike, why didn't you tell me? He was never out to meet me to make me a client. He wanted to meet me as a friend, and never once did he talk to me about, hey, do you need a quote on your homeowner's policy? Never once. It wasn't until I went to him. It's like, gosh, I appreciate that so much. He values me as a friend more than a client. But what's also interesting about Mike, he played for the Mets minor league from 1978 to 83, and then he got called up to the majors with the Mets in September of 83. And did you know he was a 48th major league player ever to get on deck for the first time at bat as a major league player, and he knocked it out of the park. The 48th ever to get on the major leagues and get at bat and hit a home run. And this guy, he played for the Mets, he played for the Expos, he played for the Angels, 9 years as a major leaguer. And then after he retired, he has an insurance agency working with his family, and he has helped me tremendously. And I have all the respect and trust for my dear friend, Mr. Mike Fitzgerald. Let's give it up for Mr. Mike Fitzgerald.
Thank you, John. Well, the first thing I'll ask everyone to do for me is say, Mike, relax. I'd rather bat with bases loaded and 60,000 people screaming than do this, believe me. Not that I don't like talking to people, but this is not my cup of tea. And as you just heard, I am not a very good salesman, which I guess I need to improve. But I can say this. I love John Kim and his family, and I'm blessed to be here, so thank you for having me. Let me start by talking about safeguarding your assets, and that's what I do for a living. I help you understand insurance and make sure that some unexpected accident that may come along doesn't ruin your family and doesn't send this whole thing upside down or go in the wrong direction. Most of the time, people don't really appreciate insurance or understand insurance. They don't want to, which is okay, but most people don't really understand the value of it until they have a bad claim. Once they have that claim, whether it's an auto accident, a dog bite, whatever it may be, they don't understand how bad it can be until they have that bad accident or incident and realize that, man, I don't know if I had my insurance set up properly. So that's why I love my job, is because whether you're buying a little bit of insurance or you're buying a lot of insurance with an umbrella, I like being able to help you understand it and then buy what you can buy. Because I know that money doesn't grow on trees, and I know that all of you are serious about this, which I think is wonderful. And listening to John today was great for me. I just know that when I go home, not that I'm out of control, but I'm not doing what I should be doing. Not in all the areas, but in a couple of them, I'm not doing as well as I should be doing. But I'm going to have to go home and negotiate with my wife. So, because my questions seem to be mean sometimes, and I don't mean them to be that way, but I ask certain questions. And so anyway, it's going to be a negotiation. But I know that what John said really makes sense to me, and it hit me right in the heart that if I'm not honest about doing some of these things, then it's not going to work anyway. So we're going to have to start to do that. So that is great. I'm going to fly by today on just a couple things I think that are very important about insurance policies in general. Some of you may start to snore, and that's okay. But I'm going to fly through it. But know this, that I'm not here to sell any one person an insurance policy. That's not why I'm here. I'm here out of respect for John, and maybe I can help someone. But I'm not here to sell anything to anybody. But I am here to tell you a little bit about what I've seen in 20 years of selling insurance and in my office and with my family's business, and what I've seen and heard from other insurance agents about insurance and claims and risk and loss. And if I can help you, my cards are out there. I brought some baseball cards too. But I have some business cards. My email's on there and my phone number. So if you do have a question or you want me to give you my opinion or help in any way, give me a call, send me an email. And if you send me an email, I was thinking about it because I'm not that techie, but maybe put reboot on it, and then I'll know, oh, that's someone from the John's seminar. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about insurance. Auto. Most of you guys drive cars, right? I was asking a friend the other day. I think horses are going to make a comeback one of these days, but auto, yeah. So auto insurance, you have your liability coverage. You guys understand liability limits. You can buy split limit liability or combined single limit. And if you don't understand, that's okay. But know this, you purchase a certain amount of insurance in thousands of dollars that will go to pay for someone that we injure in an accident or their property. Example, we rear-ended Tesla. We're a great driver, but we made a mistake. We rear-ended a Tesla. Person's not hurt, so the bodily injury portion of the liability is not going to go to pay, but we just ran into maybe a $90,000 vehicle, right? And they're all full of crazy batteries and sensors and all these things anymore. So my point is, know what you have liability-wise. Know the limits that you have, whether it's split limit liability, bodily injury, property damage, or combined single limit. Most of the time they sell combined single limit if you're purchasing a motorcycle, a motorhome, boat. They sell insurance that way. But most of the time on auto policies, I would say the majority of you have an auto policy that is split limit liability. So it's bodily injury per person they'll pay out, total bodily injury, and the property damage limit. And the comment I have for you on that is, kids are expensive, I know that. But if you looked at your policy or called your agent or you called your company, whether it's a Direct Ride or whoever is Geico or whoever it may be, if you called them up and said, hey, listen, I just listened to this guy tell me something about insurance and I want you to help me out. And you said, what are my current limits of liability? And they told you what it was because, you verified who you are and your policy number and all. And you ask them, what would it cost to raise my limits up to 100,000, 300,000, 100,000? They'll give you a quote. And most of the time when you do that, you're going to find out, unfortunately, if you have accidents and tickets, yes, it's more. But if you are a good driver, you'll at least know the difference in buying lower limits of coverage or higher limits of coverage. And most of the time, the difference between the lower limits of coverage and a 100, 300, or a 250, 500 policy, it's not a lot of money. And when you think about the risk you have, because this is a big exposure, especially if you have lower limits of coverage and you hit someone. Because in my office, oh my gosh, Shelma just flashing a sign at me, I didn't see it. Oh, okay, 5 minutes. If you are involved in an accident, and we don't have enough coverage to pay for the bodily injury that someone may have, whether it's legitimate or not, it can put gray hairs on your head. And that's one of our worst nightmares. Example, here's one of our worst nightmares. Your renewal policy is mailed to you. You're out of town, something happens, you don't pay your bill, but yet you have a kid who's driving a vehicle. We have an accident where we have an uncovered loss, meaning the insurance company says they didn't pay their bill. We know the accident was 5 days after, but they didn't pay their bill. That's one of our worst nightmares. So, liability-wise, and then the comprehensive collision on your policy are the two biggest kind of things I believe that can send you going the wrong direction. Let's say you have a vehicle and you have a loan on that vehicle. You have a lapse in coverage and the car's stolen. You're going to be responsible for whatever the value is on that vehicle to the lender. So, make sure you're up to date on your insurance, get the quotes on higher limits of coverage, and ask your agent or your company to explain certain coverages to you if you have any questions. Some of the things that are important to know about when you're getting a quote or asking your agent about what to do, what's your record like? Do you have any tickets, accidents? Where's your zip code? They rate by zip code. Is anyone qualify for good student? Multi-policy discount. Are you married? It's one of the few things where you still get a discount. I love it. I ask someone, are you married? Yeah. Oh, a discount. It's the only time I really get excited because I don't know anything else that gives you a discount for getting married anymore, It's like our whole country, our whole world is like, don't get married. Don't worry about it. You have kids, you live together, whatever. I like it. Discount, married. I like it. Okay. Homeowner, dwelling, fire, rental policies, condo policies. Yes, they all provide coverage. Obviously, a homeowner is for the dwelling, but a couple of the big important things, the liability there. Give you an example. The personal liability. I don't know if you have one. If you don't own a home, this still applies to you. If you own a condo, it still applies to you. And if you're renting something, it applies to you. I'll give you this example just to make it the point. You have a dog. Neighbor kids come over, the dog bites the kid. If you don't have personal liability, you're going to be paying that bill. And the attorneys follow around these kind of cases just like they do accidents. And they pay out a lot of money on these dog bites. So it's very important to have a policy, whether you're a homeowner, a condo owner, or renting somewhere. And the renter's policies are extremely inexpensive. They really, really are. So it's very important. Umbrella. No signs back there. Okay, umbrella. The umbrella policy, if you purchased one, and many successful people have one. I guess I'm kind of successful. I have one because I have 3 boys and I worry all the time. But the umbrella policy will cover over the top of existing policies. So if you have an auto accident, and God forbid it's a horrible accident, the umbrella would kick in if the limits on the auto policy were exhausted, meaning the auto policy paid out its max. Now you have $1 million of coverage to be involved. And most attorneys are very happy with the max limits and the umbrella coming in, and you're not going to be pursued for extra money, whether it's your wages or bank accounts or future savings that you had. They'll try to come after. I'll give you a quick umbrella scenario. You have a kid, a couple neighbor kids come over. One kid's 3 doors down there and one's about 5 down there, and they're playing airsoft shoot 'em around gun at the house. That neighbor kid shoots that neighbor kid, but it happened at your house. Are you responsible? 300 grand was paid out for a couple eye surgeries. He didn't lose his eye, but yeah. So things happen, is what I'm saying. So it's important to know what you have, and it's important to know, okay, I know what I have. What would it cost if I did raise my coverage a little bit? Last thing, lost one of my best friends and biggest advocates last Thanksgiving. And he dropped dead of a heart attack while he was visiting his daughter in Italy, who was there studying. Anyway, I love him. I mean, my very first time to Dodger Stadium as a big leaguer, he'd always told me through the minor leagues, "You're going to make it, you're going to make it, you're going to make it," you know. And he goes, "When you make it and you come to Dodger Stadium, I'm getting a limo and you're riding in my limo." And I'm like, "Oh, whatever, you know." So made it to Dodger Stadium after the game, and sure enough, there's a limo out there, and I told you so. Instead of going home with my family, I had to ride home with Billy back to Long Beach in the limo, which, you know, okay. But anyway, he was one of my biggest advocates, and when I retired or was released from baseball, I didn't want to coach. I knew I didn't want to do that. I had 4 or 5 offers to do that, but I didn't want to go back to the baseball life because be away from my family. I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time, and I knew, you know, I'm going to be gone again, 6-month season, a month and a half of spring training, and I don't want to be away from my wife or my kids. You know, my kids will tear my wife up. So I knew that I needed to be there. That was something that God put in my heart when I was a player, that, you know, when I'm done here, I think I'm done for good, you know. But anyway, I think having the right life insurance policy is the best way you can say to your wife or your kids that, hey, I love you, and, you know, protect their future. So anyway, that is it for me. Oh, yeah, that's it for me for now. I'll be available out back for a bit. And again, use my phone number and use my email. Thank you.
Stay here, though. Give him a round of applause. Mike has been such a trusted friend. I have all of my policies with him. I have my auto policy, I have my umbrella policy, I have my earthquake policy. He has taken such good care of us. And one thing I really want to emphasize to all of you, because I think there are some of you who are in this scenario and you need to realize it's not a good place to be, is you're carrying California state minimum limits for your auto policy. Can you reemphasize to people one more time why that is such a detrimental place to be?
It's a very risky place to be. And what happens when someone is hurt, you know, substantially? Not just a sore back or a sore neck where they go to the doctor, they go to the chiropractor. Talking about someone really being hurt. The numbers, the thousands of dollars that get eaten up in bodily injury go really, really, really fast. And the attorneys, as you can imagine, are always going to shoot way over the top of whatever they think you may possibly have. So I could tell you some war stories, but I can tell you that the couple times we've had people in our office and they've had low limits of coverage and they had an accident, and now instead of him hiring an attorney, he's in our office 2 days a week for months. Just, what do? I got more paperwork. And this is after the insurance company said, we'll pay the max, and that's it. Now the letters are coming to him. It can mess up, like I said, this whole program here. So know what your limits are. And everybody can't buy max limits and a $10 million umbrella. I understand that. But know what your limits are and investigate what it would cost to raise them up to a reasonable amount.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And what I appreciate about Mike, too, he's a coach at heart. I've talked with him out on the boat many times, and when he talks to me like a coach and as a friend and as a mentor. He loves me.
I was a catcher, so, you know, I had to babysit those pitchers a long time.
When you meet him one-on-one, He takes care of your family. And what I was impressed too was he did the policy for my sister-in-law's family who live in Hong Kong right now. He knew before I did that one of their kids are graduating. It's like, what in the world? An insurance agent knows before me that my cousin is about to graduate. I mean, he will take care of you, and he'll be out in the back. So let's give it up for Mr. Mike Fitzgerald.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. You're welcome. Before I wrap this up, I also have my umbrella policy too with Mike. And umbrella policies aren't that expensive. You can have another $1 million of umbrella policy above and beyond your auto policy for about $40 a month. It's not that expensive. $40 to $50 a month, you can have another. I have 5 daughters, 2 of whom drive, who are teenagers. And you know, I have no idea what's possible out there. And I'm about, yes, we trust God, absolutely. I pray for my kids regularly, but we need to defer the risk. Do not carry that risk upon your shoulders. Defer that risk for $40 to $50 a month to have another $1 million to go above and beyond your auto policy. To me, that's a no-brainer. You get into a car accident, you cause that accident, and there's a severe injury. Man, it's going to come against your assets quickly. And to safeguard it is to have an umbrella policy. Why did I buy an earthquake policy? Because my goal in the next several years to be completely done with my mortgage. Hopefully in the next 3.5 years, I'm done. If I have a house that's got equity, I'm sitting in that house with no payment, but an earthquake comes and knocks that out. I have to borrow another $400,000 to build that house again. I can't do that out of cash. Earthquake policy for me, it covers for 80% of the cost, and for me it was only about, I think, $1,000 a year. So again, it's not that much to defer risk, especially when you've done your steps and you have resources that God's given you. You have assets that are under your name. You have to properly protect it because there is an enemy that will come to try to kill, steal, and destroy. And if you're not safeguarded, it will come and bite you in the behind, which you don't want to do. I'm going to close with this last story. You know, last week I said there's a verse in Luke 16 that says, who will entrust you with greater riches if you have not been faithful with money matters? Remember that verse? We need to be obedient to God with the tithe, and we need to be responsible with what we talked about. I just got an email yesterday from that couple I was telling you the story about. Upside down, $30,000 credit card debt. They weren't tithing, robbing Peter to pay Paul, every month going negative. The second meeting, they had made all those adjustments. They're on their way to financial freedom. She just emailed me last night, and I saw it in my inbox, and this is what she said. John, guess what? My husband just got a raise of $2,000 per year just the other day. Not only that, in February, he's getting a bonus of $5,200 out of the blue. And this is what she said. We believe that it's because we began honoring God with the tithe just a couple of months ago. I'm telling you, obey God with the full tithe. And then give beyond that. Give your offerings. That's our way of saying, God, we trust you. Do this. And then it will transform your financial life. It will reboot your financial life. I'm going to dismiss you, but you know what I'm going to do? I think there's a lot of questions. Rather than standing out there and meeting you one-on-one and you have to wait anyway, do we have guys with the microphone still? You are welcome to leave, but if you want to stay and listen to the questions and ask your questions, you're welcome to. I can stay here for another half an hour. I will be happy to answer all of your questions. So if you need to go, God bless you guys. Oh, by the way, email me if you did an RSVP for this. That way I have your inbox. I'm going to send you the electronic copy of all of these documents. I can send you a link to the videos as well. But if you did RSVP, I have your email. I'll send it out to you. If we have it on video, I'll email everything to you. Financial Peace University is starting up in the near future. You can find it on our website at cottonwood.org under community. So cottonwood.org, click on community. You can see Dave Ramsey's picture, Financial Peace. Go there, check it out. God bless you guys. And if you want to stay for Q&A, I will be here. All right. We have a question over here. Those of you who are staying, you're going to be able to listen to some of these questions because you might have the same questions. So go ahead, speak into the mic, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Diana. I'm a single parent of 4 kids. They need to go to college. I'm trying to figure out how much money should I be saving a month in reference to paying for their college fund.
Okay. How much should I be saving? There's so many factors involved with that. How many years before are they, what are their ages, your kids? Okay. 7 and 8 and 2 15-year-olds. The 15-year-olds will be in college like in 3 years, right?
Yes.
There's not a whole lot you can do about that. I mean, you can start saving money, but and what type of college do you plan on sending them to?
Maybe, I don't, a UC.
Okay, I think this is where you're going to need to talk with a financial advisor. Tell them your desire. I want to send my kids to this type of college because they can go to a junior college for very little, get their GEs done, and transfer. I mean, that's one strategy. They can go to a UC, and perhaps they can get great scholarships and amazing grants because of the fact that you are a single mother, and I admire you. I say, way to go. You are our heroes because you are doing it by yourself, and man, you are a champ, so keep it up, and God honors that. So He will provide a way if you pray and trust God for it. Surround yourself with the right people to give you good counsel, but you do want to meet somebody who can strategize with you. And for the little ones, you can set money aside. I used to set aside like $50 a month since they were little, like 4 or 5 years of age. Okay. I did that every month, setting it aside. It definitely helped. It doesn't cover for all of it because, college tuition nowadays, I was just looking at USC, was $52,000 just for tuition a year for undergraduates. I mean, to go there and to try to fund all of that with money saved, it's going to be very difficult. That's a lot of money you got to put aside. Okay. That's why for college education, I recommend look for several buckets. For me, it was savings now, working, scholarship, grants and loans, and then whatever you can pay. When you look at the in total enchilada, but break it up into 4 or 5 segments and have a strategy, it's doable. So I think you need to get an advocate on your side to help coach you what to do. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, over there.
After having previously been swindled by financial advisors, how does one find a good financial advisor?
Great question. I am so glad you asked that. I'll give you one recommendation. If you go to the cottonwood.org website, click on Business Directory. It's right there on the bottom. It'll open up. In fact, the Business Directory is getting a facelift. So if you go there in about 2 weeks, I think it's going to have a brand new, very edgy look. Click on Financial, and there's few financial advisors there. They're not Cottonwood endorsed. I mean, we're not saying, okay, Cottonwood is not saying we've vetted them and say, okay, they're good. But they are most likely, I believe one of them for sure is a Cottonwood member. But one of them, his name is Jay Yanelli. His wife is on staff. He leads our Financial Peace University here at Cottonwood, and he is what's called a Dave Ramsey endorsed financial planner. So he's been vetted by their organization to a certain degree. So I've met with Jay. He's actually spoken for an event that we've had for Work Life for a smaller setting. Call him up. Talk to the other guy that's listed on there. You are in control. So as you meet with financial advisors, let the Holy Spirit talk to you. If you feel like, I'm not sure about this, anytime you have a check in your spirit, just say, okay, I'm walking away. I'm done. I don't think you're going to experience that with these guys that are on there. I know Jay personally. I think you'll be fine. But do your own vetting. Follow the unction of the Holy Spirit in your heart. That way you don't, get into a program that you're going to regret. But that's a good place to start. And I bet Dave Ramsey's website has quite a few other financial planners that are endorsed by their organization in this area. Okay? Who's got a mic?
For people,
can I get a water up here, please?
For people who haven't started families yet, do you recommend that they probably get through a large portion of that before,
That's a great question. So if you haven't started a family, meaning you're not married and no kids, or married
with no kids?
Married with no kids. Yeah, obviously, I mean, having kids, it doesn't always happen on our timetable, right? I mean, we can do our best to have kids, but God has His plan too. So if you can knock as much of that out before having kids, absolutely, that's better, because the moment you have kids, your expenses increase. So whether you have kids or not, whether you're single or married, it doesn't matter where you are. Wherever you are, find yourself on this step by step. If you haven't done the $1,000, don't worry about 2 to 7 yet. In fact, for most of you, you may not even need to worry about 4, 5, 6, and 7 just yet. It's the 1, 2, 3 you need to be concerned about. Find yourself where you're at and take care of the $1,000 first. Once you get that, move on to the second. So it's really not based upon whether you're married or single or kids or not. Wherever you're at, start doing it today. Okay? Yes.
I'm in step
1 second. By the way, I will stay and answer all of your questions, okay? As long as you don't mind waiting. I won't go until I answer your questions.
Previously, my employment always included a 401k. Now it doesn't. So if I'm in step number 4,
Yes.
what are the steps? I've never had to
Okay,
shop
great
for
question.
one. I don't
Okay.
even know what they are.
Awesome. So you have an emergency fund 3 to 6 months of your living expense set aside somewhere? You do? Fantastic. So if you have that money set aside, it's in a liquid account, bank account. I would say put it into a bank account, FDIC insured, right? Because banks will guarantee, I believe, up to $250,000. It's insured. So if the bank somehow folds, your money's guaranteed. So make sure it's in a liquid, safe account with zero potential for loss, okay? So if you have 3 to 6 months of this, then you're absolutely in step number 4. For retirement, a guy like Jay and Ellie or somebody else, like a financial planner, can sit down with you, go through a lot of questions and help you understand what you need to have in order to retire. If you want to retire and just live enough so that you can, just take care of your basic necessities, that will look different than if you want to retire and to be able to travel and do other types of activities. It looks so different for different people. So knowing what you want to get to will determine what you need to set aside and then what type of vehicle. Also, retirement accounts, if you have high risk tolerance, you're okay with the market going up and down because you know over the long haul, you feel you're going to be okay. That's one strategy. But if you say, I don't like risk, you need to go into a safe account that's going to give you 4 or 5% a year, then you got to put more into it to get to where you want to go. All of that I'm not qualified to help you with, but a financial planner who's got the proper training can help you do that. So even though your company may give you have a 401k program, you will need an advocate on your side to coach you. And he may tell you, put it into that 401k. He might say, do that along with this. But having a and also financial planners, there's different ways of getting paid, and you need to know this. Some get paid per hour. They're a fee-based consultant where you spend time with them. The initial maybe half an hour will be free, or initial hour no cost. But if you want them to strategize with you, they charge you a rate for that consultation. I actually like that. Reason being is you get good advice, not advice based upon the fact that they're going to make a commission on something they sell. There are financial advisors that are in it for the commission. I'm telling you, you need to be careful, all right? Don't jump into a program just because, they told you that that's the right thing to do. Check your spirit as you do it. If you have a glitch, don't do it. Because those who are commission-based only, they're going to try to sell you a product that's going to give them the biggest commission. Especially life insurance policy type of products will give you the biggest commission. Be careful about that. There are places for life insurance type of products to work well, but you have to structure it well. You can't just get into think that that's going to take care of my retirement. So be wary about what type of financial advisors and go with, I like personally to pay a fee and then I'm done with that person and then I follow their advice rather than them telling me do this because they get a commission out of it. Although some can be very honest about that, but more and more so, they're going to steer you toward products that give them the highest commission. That's just the reality of life, okay? Who's got a mic? Back there.
All right. So what if I come into some unexpected income?
Yeah, love it.
And I have a small business as well. So in regards to how would I start allocating that particular unexpected income?
Okay. So where are you at in this scenario of 7 steps?
Well, I guess if...
Which step are you on?
2.
Okay, so you are in the process of paying off debt, right? Uh-huh. So if you come into unexpected income and you're on step number 2, all of that extra income needs to go toward paying off that debt. I won't ask you how much debt you have, but assuming, let's just say you have hypothetically, okay, $20,000 in debt between car payment, credit card, and whatever loans you have. You come across, let's say $5,000, you get a big bonus from the company. It just came out of the blue. God bless you with that. Give your tithe. The IRS takes their portion. Whatever's left, take that and write a check to whoever on this list of debts, whichever one has the lowest balance, pay that off, and then pay the next one off as much as possible, whatever it takes. You want to take every penny of that extra money, if you're on step number 2, to pay off debt. That money should not go toward that vacation right now. Okay?
What about, I guess, for a small business to like, far as equipment for the small business?
So are you employed and you have a small business?
No, it's basically self-employed.
Oh, you're okay. So if you're self-employed,
Self-employed.
and you got a job that brought in a large amount of cash flow all of a sudden, right? That's where you're going to have to maybe strategize with somebody that can give you some counsel. Again, it's not going to be a right and wrong decision. I think it's more of a better or best decision. It won't be perfect. So if you are in a situation where you're in a business where you need to buy new equipment because that equipment is about to fail in 6 months, and if you don't have that new equipment, you're going to go out of business, then you may need to put some of that money to buy that equipment, because if that goes out, you have no business, no more income, right? Yeah. So you got to weigh that into the whole thing. But if that equipment is more of a luxury item where, gosh, I don't have to have it in the next 3 years, I just want it because it's got all the bells and whistles, and I think it's cool, and when people come to my office, they're going to like me better. No, then it may be hold off, pay off debt. Most people who got into trouble 7 years ago, the financial crash, was because they were way over leveraged. Those who had no debt, the market can tank, it can do whatever it takes. Look, it doesn't take that much money to live, right? If you have no debt, no mortgage payment, no car, no debt, what do you really need to survive? You got all your clothes, right? I can wear this every day for the next year if I had to, right? Just got to wash it every few days, right? I don't need a lot of food. You don't need much money to survive. The people who went bankrupt and upside down 7 years ago, the market crashed because they had way too much debt. When they could have taken the extra income in the good years and paid it off, they didn't do that. So it's going to become a prayerful decision on your part. But if it's a luxury item, hold off. If it's an absolute necessity to keep the business running and the business is generating revenue, then you should do it. I've met people where their business is not doing well. And I asked them, so how long has it been? 3 years? Over the last 3 years, what's your P&L statement look like? Negative every year? I'm thinking, why do you keep doing it? If it doesn't work for 3 years, unless God specifically tells you, keep at it and I will bless you, then do that. But if it's not proving itself, don't do it. Don't keep pouring money into something that doesn't work. You need to make a change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Who's got a mic? Yes.
Okay, as a newlywed, we haven't sat down and gone over a budget plan. One of us has a pretty decent amount of a savings account, and the other one does not have any.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit more?
And I just wanted to know, does one of the persons help the other one out to?
Okay, how long have you guys been married?
8 months.
Okay. Do you guys have a joint account or separate accounts?
We have a joint. It's not working though.
Well, you got to make it work.
Yeah.
In marriage, I don't believe in separate accounts.
Yeah.
What's yours is your husband's, what your husband is your wife, you are one. If we say we're one, the Bible says we're one, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we say we're one, we believe we're one, spiritually we're one. If we're one in all of that, but in the finances we're not one, it's not going to work. We have to both come together and say, and have some honest conversations about money. And this is where having your husband and your wife combine together to watch something like this, to hear the message last weekend, is important because both of you have to be on the same page. If you prayerfully come together and still cannot come to an agreement, this is where you would need to, as the wife, submit to your husband and say, honey, I've shared my differences with you. I know you want to say, let's do it this way. I'm thinking this way is better for these reasons, and you've stated your case lovingly, right? Mm-hmm. But then at the end, if there's still an impasse, you would say, honey, I'm trusting God. I'm going to trust you. I submit to you. Let's do it your way, and you do that and see what happens. That's honoring God.
Okay. What I was going to ask was, should one help the other out to get rid of the debt?
See, I don't see. That's where I still see a difference there. I'm seeing, should one help the other? It's not
Okay.
one helping the other. It's you as one working together to get rid of debt. That debt that he, or whether you have the debt or he has the debt, it's not their debt or my debt. It's our debt. We're one. We need to attack this debt as a one unit and say we're paying this baby off, and this is how we're going to do
And
it
use
right here.
Okay, then I was going to ask, and to use that plan,
Yeah.
or to use the savings that's already there.
Now, when you say savings, that is okay. So this is where it gets a little convoluted.
Okay.
If you have a pretty decent sized cushion savings now, so you have more than 1,000, but you have debt.
Yes.
That's where you need to make a decision. Am I okay with having just $1,000 in my savings account and taking the other? Let's say you had 10,000 total. Am I okay with leaving 1,000 and taking the $9,000 and paying that off toward debt? That will have to. I can't tell you what to do on that one. Based upon this, that's what you should do. But you already have 10,000 in that account. I'm not telling you you should go to 1,000, but I am telling you make a prayerful decision and say, God, I have 10,000. My debt is X amount. How much of this should I keep in my bank as a reserve, and can I take this and pay off debt? Because if you're paying 20% interest on a credit card, but you're earning nothing on the savings, that 10,000 is sitting there earning you nothing. Yeah, it's a cushion, but perhaps you can keep 2,500. And for a season, take $7,500, pay that debt off, and then once this debt is paid off, build this back up. But that's where you need to make a prayerful decision as to what's best.
What's best?
Does that make
Okay,
sense?
Thank you. Yes.
Over here.
Hi, I'm an only child, and I'm not married, but I'm the primary caretaker for my dad, who's 89. He'll be 90 in March. Where in your steps should I plug in allocation for money for his future care? And how much do I even average out that should be, or find out what that should be?
Way to go for doing that, by the way. The Bible does say we need to honor our father and mother, and you are totally doing that, and that pleases the Lord, and that's being your heart. God will help you. So to answer your question as to where to plug that in, let me ask you a few questions. Do you have this? Okay. If you don't have, because I believe we need to help people from the overflow of what God's given us. If we're trying to help people, but we don't have the basis covered, I don't think that's healthy either. God says that He will give blessing so that you can help others. I mean, I'm trying to think of the verse. It's not coming to me. But anyway, we need to be giving out of the overflow. So if that's not happening, I think before you, so when you say you want to help your father, do you need to give to him financially now, or are you saying you want to save for the future?
He lives with me, so yeah.
So basic needs, food
So-
and basic care,
exactly.
you're paying for that, right?
Mhm.
So
And then in the future, I'm thinking, if he needs any in-home care or.
Okay, so there's a present element and there's a future element. The present element will fall into all of these, right, as your monthly basic expenses. So we're talking about future element. So having said that, I think what you need to work toward is getting this first. Make sure you have $1,000 saved up and get that tucked away, because that will also help your father when there's an emergency. If you need to take him to the hospital, there's a copay, you don't have that, that can help with that, right? So get this first. And then after that, work on paying off your debt. Now, as far as saving money aside for a future of how do I help my dad for in-home care, I'm not quite sure where to put that in at this point. But I really think that this is the template that you need to follow. You need to get this done. And if something happens to your father, all of a sudden the funds aren't there. That's where you're going to have to say, God, right now, the reality is I'm going to do this. I'm working to pay this off. If something happens to my dad 6 months from now and I don't have the resources, I'm trusting you, God. Will you help me? But I'm going to work through this. And that's where an element of faith comes in. Say, God, I'm going to trust you. I can't make money up here. I'm not going to not tithe so that I can pay for the future, because that's not right. I'm going to tithe. Uncle Sam gets his portion. I got to do what I got to do. But you start working through this. And somewhere in here, as you do this, I think God will begin to open up some doors and show you what needs to be done. So there's really not a black and white. But I do strongly believe you need to follow this. Because without this, then you're not going to be in a position to help your father from a healthy place. Make sense?
Thank you.
Okay.
One moment, please.
Similar situation. Go ahead.
I'm in a similar situation with my special needs sister. I mean, the last 6 months, she's been in the hospital 28 times for a seizure, and I spent like $5,000 out of my own money. So in 2 years, I've
Did
gone.
you go into debt for that? Or did
no,
you pay cash?
luckily I have a nice
so,
job.
So out of your reserves, you didn't get into
Yeah,
debt for that.
so
Okay,
I've
good.
gone from $30,000 down to $4,000 in my reserve.
Okay.
Just from, in the last
All right.
2 years from taking care
Your
of
sister,
her.
you said, right?
My special needs sister.
Okay, all right.
So, and the house is in a special needs trust, but there's a lien for it
What do you mean the house in a special needs trust?
because
Which house?
our family home
So you live in a house, and that house is in a trust
for her.
for her.
Yeah, it's called a special needs trust.
Okay, so.
But there's a mortgage on it. So I'm paying a mortgage.
Okay.
There's a lien from Medi-Cal.
All right.
Because she's on SSI.
Okay.
I can't afford to put her on my insurance.
Right.
You know, one medication is over $1,000 a month. So I can't deduct anything for her because it will be considered
Okay.
income.
I think this scenario is pretty complex. Email me. Let's
Okay.
talk over via email, and then we can sit down together and I can share some ideas. But I think you may want to get a financial planner involved in this one because there's so many moving parts and other X factors that we need to consider. A lot of questions need to be asked. So let's talk about because anyway, let's email me. We'll go take it from there. Okay? Yes.
Hi. So
Speak into the mic.
Okay. Hi. My name's Laila, and I read some of the Dave Ramsey book. I believe it. I'm not sure if I read this wrong, where it says if your debt, a portion of your debt is more than 50%, then your income, then leave that for the second payoff or something like that. Like for the step 2, you're paying off everything that's 50% or less. Is that why the mortgage is 6?
Yeah, that might be. So when you say if your debt is 15% of what?
Like, for instance, I've paid off all the others, but I have one student loan that is more than 50% more than what I currently make.
So what does that make? So let's hypothetically, if you make $100,000 a year, you're saying that your student loan is like 51,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so got it. I'm with you.
And so he doesn't mention. I don't remember if I should pay that like I would pay a mortgage, like save that for 6.
Okay.
Or yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't remember that. It might have been in his book. It's been so long since I read it. I don't quite remember that, but that totally makes sense to me. Okay. So that might be a good rule of thumb. You might want to read the book and find out if that's exactly what he says, but that does make sense to me. So what she's saying is, if you're, usually an auto loan's not going to, unless you have this Beamer 7 Series, right? Usually an auto loan's not going to be that. It's going to be a school loan type of thing, usually with a fairly low interest rate, not just 12%. So if your school loan is 50% or higher of your annual income. So if your annual income is $100,000, but you have $51,000 in your school loan, don't put that in this category, but treat it like a mortgage and drop it here.
Right.
That totally makes sense to me. So, okay, so if you have a school loan, because those are the ones that usually have a bigger balances, right? Credit card loan, auto loan, those things can be right here. They usually stay here, on their payoff here. But a school loan that's got a significant balance, think about putting it here so that you can pay off all of your other debt, do your emergency fund first, plan on your retirement, do all of these, and then work to paying off that school loan because it's a larger amount. But in the meanwhile, you should be paying your monthly payment anyway because it's like a mortgage, you got a monthly payment.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I just throw in a little
Sure.
extra one? Okay. So the retirement, you did answer this before, but I feel I put so much in my retirement. Could I, and they do match, but
Yes.
however, I feel that I could pay off the little bit of debt left just if I kind of ease off on that for a
Sure,
little while.
yeah.
So is that okay?
I'm all for that. I mean, so if you're okay to forego the matching portion, because they can match you dollar for dollar, but that account, what's it earning you? I mean, probably.
3%. They match up to 3%.
Okay, so they match us.
So I put in 6%.
Okay, so the difference. So what you're saying is you put in 6% of your income.
Right.
You want to drop it to 3%, so you get the full match.
No, I have to put in at least 6% for them to match
Okay.
3%.
Yeah. So that's where it's up to you. If you really want to get out of debt quickly, don't do the 401k. Forgo the match for a short season. Knock off your debt quickly, and then go right back into it. That's one scenario. Or you can bring it down to a certain amount, keep some going in, and take the others and pay off debt. So it's, again, not a black and white answer. Do what you feel most comfortable doing. I hate having debt over me. So the only thing I have is my mortgage and nothing else. So I might lean toward because that account, stock market is doing all right, but you might be earning 5-6% on that, and then paying, what kind of rate are you talking about on your other debts?
The highest would be, I think, 10%.
Okay, so 10%. So
Yeah.
you're paying 10%, you're earning 5 or 6. I would much rather pay off that debt quickly and be done, and then go right back into the 401k. That's what I would lean toward, but you could be somewhere in between there.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Hi. So I'm engaged and I have one down and I'm actually doing two for
One
both.
child down? What do you mean
no,
one down?
number one.
Okay. When you first met, see, I'm still in this wedding mode here. My daughter just got married like a few weeks ago. So when you say one down, thinking one child down, one more to go. So, sorry. So you have number one taken care of. Great.
And with being engaged, I'm actually paying the debt for both of us.
Okay.
So my plan now is I want to get a home. Where do I fit that in that plan?
Okay. I don't think anybody should buy a home until they pass at least number 3. Okay? Because the moment you become a homeowner, you got expenses, right? Things break. And people can be house rich but cash poor. That's a bad place to be. Because if you over leverage and buy a house, yeah, it's cool to have a house and you're building some equity and yeah, you get some tax write-off. But if you have no emergency, if you have $1,000 and you have a mortgage, that's a pretty scary place to be. Because there's so many potential things that can happen. You get a water leak and you got an issue and you got to take care of your house. You got property tax. There's so many things. And plus, if you happen to lose your job for a short season, what about the mortgage payment? Then you go into foreclosure. It's just really messy. If you have an emergency fund, so I would say calculate what your future housing payment would be with that mortgage and all of your expenses, add all of your other monthly expenses, and calculate a 3 to 6 months emergency plan or fund. Once you have that money in there, then consider buying a house. And when you do buy a house, I would strongly recommend putting at least 20% down, because then you can buy a house without mortgage insurance. I'm not saying don't buy a house with 10% down and finance 90% and have MI. If that's what you really want to do, that's between you and God. I don't think that's the best option. The bigger the down payment, the better, and avoid mortgage insurance as much as possible and get into a 30-year fix with the lowest payment possible. But you have to make sure you have contingency plans. Before you jump into anything, think about what's the worst case scenario that can happen, and am I prepared for that? Does that answer your question? Who's got the mic?
I have several issues. One of the issues is I married late in life. I am at number 6.
Okay.
When my
You're
husband,
paying off your mortgage. You have no other debt, so you're working to pay off your mortgage.
Well, see, there's a catch. When I got married, my husband and I are at 2 different levels.
Okay.
I'm at this place only because I spend too much money, so I can fit everything in here.
Okay.
And get better results.
Okay.
But right here, we're at, we talked about it when we first got married, but then he fell off the wagon.
Okay.
He does not come to church. I'm a member, I pay tithes, I do all of that.
Yep.
I talk to him about things, but I think we need marriage counseling. I don't know if I need to do, which ones do I do first? Do I?
And I'm not a marriage counselor.
No, I understand, but I've asked him to come, in the early years, I asked him to come to marriage counseling. I don't have a biblical reason to divorce my husband. And I'm just saying that it's kind of, I'm hearing all of these things, and I'm in a good place financially. I have retirement. I'll deal with my required minimum distribution coming soon.
Okay.
I'm getting somebody. I'm going to research. You've given me a lot of ideas, but I'm very concerned about. Oh, we do have a joint account.
Okay.
We have a joint savings and a joint checking, but we
Okay.
also have our own savings and our own checking.
Okay.
And that's where we started it, and it's working for us.
Okay. When you pray and ask God about the situation, what is He telling you?
Well, one of the things I got was greet my husband. I know that sounds kind of odd.
Greet?
But yes.
Uh-huh.
So we're staying in communication with my husband.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've been doing.
Good. Good.
It's not easy, and I pray daily, and that's why I said I'm not sure if I need to come in and do both of these together. I just need help. I want my marriage to stand on God's word.
Yep.
but it is not easy.
Right.
And the finances, I'm whole. I've even asked him, let's do the funeral. He refuses everything I discuss. He doesn't, I have
Okay.
funeral arrangements,
All right.
he doesn't. And I know that he can do it.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I think, again, if you try to look at the entire problem in one glance, it's very overwhelming.
Yes.
So you're at the situation. Chances are it's not going to change overnight.
No.
You didn't get here overnight, so you're
No.
not going to get out of it overnight, right?
Exactly.
That's just the reality of life. If we just think that God's going to do something miraculous tomorrow and all of a sudden
No,
all of
I'm
it's going to
not-
go
no.
away, He can.
Right.
But
No,
I
I-
don't think He does that most often, because if that happens, we go right back into that
Yeah.
situation,
Well, the
right?
pastor
So if
talked
we
about
didn't
that.
get into it overnight, we're not going to get
No,
out
I'm
of it
not expecting
overnight.
that.
So for now, keep talking to God about it.
Okay.
Enjoy the journey and say, God, what are you telling me to do right now in this season? What's the one thing? That's where, remember what, when Mary and Martha were sitting, Jesus was at Mary and Martha's house. Martha was upset. Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. And Martha came to Jesus and said, Lord, tell her to help me. What did Jesus say? Martha,
Mind your
Martha,
own
you are
business."
worried and concerned about too many
Right.
things. Only one thing is needed.
Okay.
And Mary has chosen the one thing. So ask yourself, Lord, what is, or ask God, God, what is the one thing I need to do right now to turn my life into the right direction? And I'm just going to do that.
Okay.
God doesn't make it complex.
Okay.
And just do that one thing until the next thing opens up, and then do that next thing.
Thank you very
If
much.
you don't know what to do right now in life, question you everybody must ask is, what's the one thing that I remember for sure God told me to do last? And go back, pick it up from there, and start doing that again, and God will open up the next door. Who's got a mic? Yep.
I have a question in regards to the debt and, let's say, zero interest on credit cards. Can I roll anything over to a 0% interest, maybe for 90 days or 6 months
Okay.
to pay off?
Okay, good question. So the intention, what is the intention of rolling over into that 0% credit card? What is your intention?
To be able to pay more debt off, if I can roll it over to a 0% interest where maybe I have a 10 or 12% interest
Right,
or 24% interest.
Right. And how's your credit right now? Good, fair, great?
I would say mid-sevens.
Okay, so you have, if it's mid-sevens, you have stellar credit. Okay. And so again, here, it's not a right or wrong response. I think you know best what you are capable of doing. If by rolling over to a zero interest credit card for a 6-month period, let's say, is going to cause you to borrow more, don't do it. If you can promise to say, okay, right now I'm paying 18% on this credit card, I can roll that over into a 0%, and for 6 months, I got no interest. You do that, you close, you can either close it or don't use it, because this is where you get into this little rat race, right? You move it over and you got that credit card zero. You use it again, you got zero here, and you keep expanding your debt. If that's what's going to happen, don't do it. But if you can say from now on, I've drawn a line in the sand and said, I'm not going to borrow any more, no more credit card use, period, then having done that, by rolling it over from an 18% credit card to a 0% for 6 months, numbers-wise, it makes sense. But the question is, can you do it? So let's say you have $10,000 in a credit card, you roll it over to a 0% credit card, the 18% is zero balance, this one's got $10,000. If you can promise to take whatever you have and pay that aggressively into that, it's going to help you to pay it off sooner. But even at 18% on an annual basis, again, it depends. If you have huge amount or small, if it's a small amount, if it's like a $5,000 credit card, I wouldn't worry about it. A $5,000 at 18% over a year period, but if you can get out of debt in 6 months, it's not worth the hassle. So you got to look at a lot of factors and say, is it worth it for me to do this, and make a judgment call? But the danger is, if by doing that, you're going to be potentially getting into more debt, don't do it. Don't open up any more credit cards just to get that 0% if that's going to be a danger to you. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Who's got the mic?
Here.
Yes.
Good morning, John. Thank you so much for this class. I really greatly appreciate it. I know it's very expensive somewhere else. Thank you, John. In Spanish, we call it the 3 Bs, buenos, bonito, y barato, meaning good, pretty, and inexpensive. So what are the smart shopping, money-saving tips like you shared at service regarding the car, regarding the lease, how actually you're paying more, where you can be saving. And also, because I wanted to lead to use wise investment, how can I use all this saving to make wise investment? And can I be financially secure for life, like Joseph prepared Egypt for the future?
I don't think I can answer all three in one sitting. So,
But the smart
so choose
shopping.
one question
The
that
first
is
one.
the most important
The
question
smart
to you.
shopping, money saving tips like you shared
So
regarding the lease.
is your question, what are some tips
Yeah.
for smart shopping?
Yeah.
Shopping what kind of a product? Because I don't want to go into shopping what type of clothes
Well,
to
you
buy.
did share last Sunday regarding saving money instead of leasing, buying a
Okay,
car.
so let's talk about
And
auto.
you explained that scenario, for example.
Okay, so that's in the message. So
Yeah.
an auto, don't lease. That's the most expensive way to buy a car is to lease a car. The best way to buy a car is to buy a used car, a dependable used car. Don't buy a car that you know. And you can go to like consumer, Consumer Reports. There's other websites that are free as well. And do some shopping and find out, okay, a car that's has 80,000 miles, will this car last another 100,000? And find out what's a reliable car that will stand the test of time. I'm expecting to drive my car to at least 250,000 miles. I have 144,000, and I want to go at least another 100,000. So buy a car that you know will be dependable, and then at the same time, buy with acceptable used miles. Now, I'm not saying you should buy a car with 100,000 miles, but I'm saying you should buy a car that's got probably 4 years under its belt. By doing 4 years, chances are you're going to save about 60% on the depreciation. So a 4-year-old car might have minimum 40,000 miles to more like, 60,000 miles on it. So buy something in that range and then buy it all cash. If you can't buy it all cash, finance it with the shortest term at the lowest rate possible. I think that's just the best way to buy a car. All cash, use accepted miles, dependable, or finance it over the shortest term with the lowest rate. Question?
I'm at where I'm already past number 3, but instead of going into putting money into retirement, I'm putting in a savings for a down payment to purchase
Down payment
a
for
home,
what?
For a
To
home.
purchase a home.
So, I mean, should I put money in my retirement first or along the same time? Or because my thing is, like, I didn't want to have a MI, right? So then
Great.
I didn't purchase, an FHA 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I started saving.
Great.
But now the same home that I wanted is like 150 grand more. So I'm
Right.
like, I'm never going to catch up with this.
Yeah.
I'm getting frustrated.
Are you praying
And
about it?
I am.
Okay. As you
But-
pray, are you getting any kind of sense from the Lord on that?
Just, I'm trusting God for it, and I have peace where I am.
Good. Okay.
But I'm like, now I'm getting to a point when, okay, when is it going to happen?
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if and then I worry about the retirement too.
Okay. All right. I have some questions. So, with retirement, do you have a financial advisor helping you?
No.
Okay. I think it's a good idea to have a financial advisor so that you can understand where you need to be at retirement and what you need to go there, what you need to do to get there, correct? Because knowing is half the battle. If you don't know, then you're going to aim in the dark and you won't hit your target. But if you know what your retirement needs to look like and what you need to do every month to get there and have a game plan, then you can ask yourself, okay, I have how many years till retirement? A desired number of years.
20.
Okay, so you have about 20 more years to work. So you have 20 more years to go. I want to be there at retirement. And to get there in 20 years, I need to be putting aside X amount every month. So you know what you need to do, right? Once you know that, then you can make a judgment call. All right, Jesus can come back in less than 20 years. I mean, you can have all of this down pat and have it all in your own wisdom, but things can change in 5 years, right? So you'll need to make a prayerful decision. Say, God, I'm planning for retirement, and this is what I need to get there, and I have the funds to do it. What should I do now? Should I keep doing that, but you know the desire of my heart is to buy a house. I also know that right now, home prices have gone up to almost a peak that it was 7-8 years ago, right? God, is this the best time to buy, or am I buying at the peak? Personally, I think if you buy now, you are buying somewhat at the peak, because I think there's going to be an adjustment sometime in the future. It can't keep going up like this, right? I mean, that's common sense. It can't keep going up like this, because everybody's going to be priced out of buying a house, right? Because median income hasn't gone up at the same pace, right? If median income is like this, but housing prices keeps going like this, eventually we're going to hit a ceiling, and then people are going to say, I can't afford this. Same thing's going to happen. There's going to be a market correction. Perhaps waiting for that market correction is a better situation. But then again, you got rates that are changing as well. So there's so many factors. God knows. So follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. Don't make any rash decisions. Take your time. Say, God, tomorrow you wake up, pray about it. Next week, pray about it. And see what God is. Oftentimes, what I found, God doesn't give you an answer immediately. I think God gives you answer over a period of time as you keep praying about it. You hear somebody else say something, it's like, man, that resonated in my gut. And then a month later, somebody else says, oh, that's the same thing they said. That resonated with me. And you start putting the pieces together, and then God starts giving you direction. So until then, don't make a rash decision. So if you know what your game plan is to get to retirement, at the same time, the desire of your heart is to buy a house, and then let me ask you, how much of that 20% down payment do you have in cash right now?
I haven't gotten to the full 20. That's
So where are you?
I am, well, now with the prices of the homes.
Right.
Now that I was at 15, now I feel like I'm at 10
Okay,
because everything.
so about you're halfway there to get there. So what you're saying is, should I not put money into retirement, and should I put it into savings account to buy a house? So again, that's where it's not a right or wrong decision. It's a better or best decision kind of thing. So talk to a financial advisor, talk to God about it, and you might need to make a decision that is a bit of a hybrid. Put some into retirement, put into savings for a home. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think we can make judgment calls based upon the scenario. So you don't have to go all retirement or all house. Do some into retirement, some house. But by knowing your destination and how to get there, if you make a call and say, okay, I'm going to put half of what I should be in retirement, then you know you're going to be half short. Are you okay with that? But you may be half short for a while, but once you buy a house, you can catch up later too. I mean, there's so many factors involved. So don't make a one or the other decision. Look at all the pieces together, put it before God and say, God, this is where I'm at. Would you guide me and lead me, bring the right people into my life? Talk to financial advisors. They can give you so many different perspectives on the matter, and then let the Holy Spirit tell you, okay, this is what I think what you should do. Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Over
Who's got
here.
the mic? Oh, way over
Hi,
there.
John. How are you?
Hey.
My question is, it's about credit. I had some medical because I was injured on the job, and medical bills, and then I'm building my credit back, and it's going along. And then I ran into some people who were saying, well, you have this with your medical, and then other people say, well, you really don't have to worry about the medical. It doesn't really ding on your credit as much. My question is, which one is telling the truth?
Okay, so when you say I have medical, you're talking about medical bills that are outstanding.
Yes.
Have they put a lien against you so that it shows up on your credit score?
No.
So there's no lien against you, and if you pull your credit right now, it won't show up on your credit score.
Well, one of them, one for 5.
Okay,
and,
so
yeah.
some might, some may not.
Right.
So the question is, should I put more emphasis on paying off my medical bill, or should I put more emphasis on paying on my credit card bill, right?
Right.
So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just follow this. Take all of your debts that you have, medical bills, credit card bills, whatever, know what the balances are, put it all there from smallest to largest, because your credit score is what it is right now. You're not going to change it in 3 months, so don't worry about that. But when you do get totally paid off debt, that's going to help your credit score. So don't worry so much about the score. Put it from the smallest to the largest, follow that system, aggressively start paying off one by one from the smallest to largest, and then you'll get out of debt. I think that's what you should focus on, and not so much on the score itself, except if some of those items are compounding penalties and they're growing bigger and bigger, then you will want to put that one at the top so you're not constantly going under. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but yeah, it does. Go ahead.
So that's all I have to say. So do it that way. Otherwise, just follow Dave's system, smallest to largest, pay off the smallest one, you get momentum, and then take that savings, apply it, and keep paying it off like a snowball.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, John?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much for everything. What about refinancing a mortgage loan to lower payments, even if it takes longer to pay that mortgage loan, especially if it helps better take care of steps 2 and 3?
Yeah, so again, that's one of those questions that could be a judgment call. What kind of debt are we talking about? I don't want to ask you to disclose how much of that
Right.
debt is, but if we're talking,
Well,
again,
say it's just 5 years to go.
Okay.
Most
5 years to go to pay off your mortgage?
pay off the
So
first mortgage.
You have a
right.
30-year fixed?
Yes.
What's your interest rate?
It's going to go up to 3.5%.
Is it a fixed or is it a adjustable?
It's adjustable.
Okay, so if you have 5 years left, that means you have tremendous amount of equity in that house, right?
Yes,
So
right.
any lender right now would be dumb not to refinance you. So
Right.
I would absolutely recommend that you refinance your loan to a rate that is comparable to what you have.
Right.
But if you have 5 years left, that's where it becomes a judgment call too, because rates are not going to go from 3-something to 8 overnight.
Right, right.
So by refinancing, that you got expenses, closing costs to factor in. So you're going to take your loan amount, increase it by the closing cost. Do you want to do that? So
Well,
that's,
yeah, I've got a second too, which is at a higher rate, so it'd be nice to combine them.
okay. So
And
I
that-
think
yeah.
combining a first and second is great.
Okay.
I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat because they're both a lien against your house, right?
Right.
You miss that payment, they can come against you and put a
Right.
lien against your house, and all of that happens, right?
Yeah, right.
Leaving the credit card aspect out for now, I would
Mhm.
say refinance the two of them at the current low rates because you have tremendous amount of equity. What kind of equity do you think you have percentage-wise?
Oh,
80% equity, 70% equity?
it's about 80%
Okay.
equity.
So you owe 20%, you have 80% equity.
Yeah.
Combine the two, get a 30-year fixed rate at the lowest rate possible. Do that, but keep paying the same amount, because when you go into
Right.
30-year now, your
Uh-huh.
payment's gonna go from whatever it was, let's say it was 2,000, it's gonna go from
Right.
2,000 to like 1,200 a month. Because
Right.
you're expanding it for another 30 years when you're done in 5 years.
Right.
Don't go another 30 years. So keep paying the same amount after you refinance, you'll be done
Uh-huh.
sooner than 5 years. Does that
Well,
make sense?
I was thinking of maybe doing a 15-year
Do a
fix
fi- if
instead
you
of
can-
30-year
if
fix,
you
because
can
I've
do a-
only got a few more years before
Absolutely.
retirement.
If you can do a 15-year, because they usually
Yeah.
give a rate that's about 0.5% better. If you
Okay.
can do a 15-year fix, do that. But as long as you can commit to that and you're not jeopardizing
Right.
yourself, because some people make that mistake, oh, I want to do 15, they get into it.
Right.
They lose a job, their
Got
pay
it.
gets cut, and all of a sudden they have a bigger payment, then you're stuck. I'd much rather you go 30-year fix at a 0.5% higher
Okay.
and pay a bigger payment to be done in 15 years
Yeah.
than be stuck in 15 and not be able to make the payment and lose the house.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
So
thanks.
do that, but then the other credit card portion, it's a question of how much balance do I have? If it's a large
Right.
balance, with the amount of equity you have, it makes sense to put it together and just knock it all out.
Probably.
So you can do that, but make a
Yeah.
prayerful decision, make a judgment call, weigh out the pros and cons of both.
Okay.
Because with the credit card, you might still be able to pay off in 1 year.
Right.
If that's the case, do you want to add that to the loan? Or
Right.
just pay it off and be done with it? So look at both
Okay.
sides and then make a prayerful decision on that.
Okay.
But
Thanks a lot,
know
John.
the facts before
Yeah.
you make a call.
All right, great.
Okay? Yes.
Thank you. This is more about the savings. Let's say number one's taken care of, we're working on number two, and we're just about done.
Okay.
And if you already said this, I apologize, but I didn't
That's
hear it.
okay.
That's why I'm asking you to repeat it. Are we then taking that money, let's say it's $1,000 now that we're using to pay off a car?
Yeah.
It's done. Is that what we're throwing into number three?
Absolutely.
And then, and also any other additional income that comes along the way? And then
Absolutely.
when we're done, do we combine number one with number three? Or keep them
Yes, yes.
separate?
So number 3 is basically taking the $1,000 you had in a savings account and adding more money to it to build it up to 3 to 6 months of your living expense. It's not one account has 1,000, another account has this. It's one account that you began with 1,000 first, but then once your debt is paid off, that $1,000 you're talking about that used to go toward debt, you're putting that all into that $1,000 account to bring that up to a fully funded emergency fund.
Okay, and then with that fund, do you put it like in a, you said keep it liquid so you can get to it, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you put it like in a CD or something? Because
I
you're
wouldn't.
assuming you're going to touch it.
I wouldn't put it in a. I mean, you can, but because CD you can liquidate, you lose all the interest that you earned. It's up to you. But I don't. It's not earning so much anyway. If the CDs were earning you 5-6%, absolutely do it. Because if you don't need to pull it out, you can be earning that. But if you have to pull it out, you just don't earn it. There's no penalty, right? So it's up to you, but I'm not too concerned about that as long as it's FDIC secured and insured and it's no chance of loss. You don't want to put it into a market fluctuating type of an account.
And then final part, because it still correlates to savings. So then you're fine there, thank you for that, and then you're working on your retirement. If you don't have to worry about either a college fund or a mortgage, should
Yeah.
you substitute that for anything else? Is there something else out there we're not
So,
thinking of?
so what you're saying is, are you concerned about retirement? Are you going to put money toward that?
No, that'll be taken care of.
Oh, so that's taken care of.
You're right.
You have extra money. You don't have to worry about a college fund.
No.
You don't have a mortgage.
No.
So the next step is, so read Dave Ramsey's book.
Oh, that's right.
And find out what this is all about and find out how you can, and then you say, God, you've blessed me with all this. I have no mortgage payment. My retirement's taken care of. I have X amount every month coming in. What do you want me to do with this?
Okay.
How can I sow into your kingdom more?
Okay.
And then prayerfully make a decision and give like never before.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yes, over here.
I have a question. I heard your message yesterday, last week about the lease of the cars,
Yep.
but it was a little bit too late. So
Yep.
now I have 2 leases for my 2 older kids who are in college. What would be your advice on that?
Before I give you my advice, I'll tell you what I do. I had a lease prior to coming to work at Cottonwood Church. I leased a car, had payments on it, and coming to Cottonwood, I was self-employed, and at that time, I don't want to go into too much detail. Anyway, I had a lease. I was coming to Cottonwood to work here, and I didn't want any car payments. So I called up the company. I said, I want to get out of this lease. I love the car. I want to keep it. I plan on keeping it for a long time. What do I need to do? They gave me a balance. Say, this is your payoff. If you pay this off, the car is yours. I looked at that amount, compared it to fair market value. It made sense, so I just paid the whole thing off. So I got out of my lease by paying off the complete balance, and I owned the car. And I've had that car since. So that's the car I've had for 12 years. For you, I don't know what kind of contract you got yourself into. So if that lease, call the company and say, okay, I don't want this lease anymore. Ask them, what are you, whenever you talk to people like this, know that you're in control. Although you may not be technically under this situation, talk to them like you're in control, okay? You're the boss. Don't feel like you have to submit to whatever they tell you. Call them up and say, I've been having this lease, I've been in it for how many years?
It's going to be 1 year for one.
Okay,
and
I've had
started
it. I've had it for a lease, and how many more years left? 2?
2 more.
2 more years left. I love the car. I want to keep the car. What will it take for me to buy this car outright right now? Have them email you a payoff statement. Get that amount, okay? Once you look at that amount, do some research and find out what is the fair market value of this car. What's the reliability of this car? Can I keep this car for long term? Am I going to be happy with it? If that payoff amount is so crazy that it's not worth buying it because you're way overpaying for that car, don't do it. Just stay in the lease and then just finish the lease and then walk away. Then you're done. So I'm not saying you should don't make the payment and get the car repossessed. That's not good either. Okay? Make the payments, be done with the lease. 2 years later, you're done, and then you never have to lease again. So find out what your options are by calling them and then make a decision as to what you think is best. But don't buy that car if you feel like that's not the car you want to keep for a long time, or if it's not a reliable car, or if that amount that they give you is so high that it's not worth worth the car. You're way overpaying. Make sense? Okay. Yes, back there.
Hi, John. Thank you. Based on what the steps up there, it sounds like it would make more sense to take money out of our emergency fund that we do have to pay off a car payment then, and which I actually forgot to tell you that we did have. That is the one
Okay.
that we do have, besides the school loans. So we do have some emergency funds set aside. So should we be taking some of that out towards the car payment?
Okay, I think there was a question earlier that was similar to that. Again, it's a judgment call. When you say you have emergency fund, how many months of your living expense do you have set aside?
It's probably a good solid 4 months.
Okay, so know what that, so once you do that exercise, you'll know exactly on paper what your monthly expenses are.
I see.
Don't do a guess. Know the facts, okay, before you make any move. So you should, when somebody asks you, what's your monthly expense, you should be able to say, let me look at the document. It's $5,000 every month is my expense. 3 to 6 months, if I want 6 months, it's $30,000, right? So if you know that, from that point, then you can make a good decision. So if you have 4 months solid, then the question is, and then let's ask how many what's the balance on your car payment or car note? What's the balance?
What is it, like 20,000?
So about 12,000, and
No,
that's how many?
20, maybe about
20,000. So how many more years do you have on that car payment?
4 years.
Okay, so 4 years. So again, are you okay with taking, on this board, it would say, do that. Keep 1,000 in the bank, take whatever else you have, pay off your car loan, and then take whatever you're paying into the car note, right? What's your car payment?
What is it? Like 400? Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
so take that 400 and put it into your savings account every month. That's what this would tell you to do. So if let's just hypothetically say you have 30,000 in a bank, you have 30,000 in a bank account, you have a $20,000 car note. If you follow this to the T, you'll say, take the 30,000, take 20,000 of it out, pay off your car loan. That means you have now 10,000 left in that savings account, which is less than what you want to have a fully funded emergency fund. But that's okay because you got 1,000 or more.
Okay.
Once the car loan is done, take that 400 and then start putting into the 1,000 and build this back up.
Exactly.
Because in 1 year, that $400 is $4,800. Right? In 3 years, you're going to be. 4 years, you're going to be pretty much back to where you were. So that's the way to follow this to the T. But the question is, do you have a mortgage?
No, not right now.
The question is, are you okay with having 10,000 in that account?
Right.
If having 10,000 puts you in a place where you're uneasy about your finances, maybe that's not the best way, and that you need to make a prayerful decision on that. Say, okay, instead of 20,000, I'll pay 10,000 to my car note. Take my 30,000 and bring it to 20,000. I'm okay with 20,000. You feel. Now your car note went from 20,000 to 10,000. You keep paying the $400 payment. You'll be done much sooner than you would have had if you kept your car payment going the way it is. So it might be sort of a hybrid kind of a decision, not one or the other, but make a husband and wife prayerful decision together and do what you think is
And if
the
I
best
may,
decision.
I'm sorry, someone mentioned about, rolling over a balance into a 0% credit card. On the same lines, do you think that's ever a reasonable idea for doing that with your school loans, which are well over, 150,000?
I think so. For school loans, to me, that's more of a black and white decision, because credit card, if by doing that, the temptation is you just took one, opened up another credit card, you rolled it over, you got another credit card with zero balance you can use. School loan doesn't work that way, right? You're not going to borrow more money for education that you're not going to be obtaining, correct? So a school loan, absolutely, it is what it is. Let's just say you have a $100,000 school loan. Yeah, if you can take all of those and roll it over and refinance it to another loan that's going to give you a better rate, better terms, absolutely do that, as long as it is truly a better rate, better terms. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. But that makes sense because you're not going to roll it over and get into more debt, because this is a school loan scenario, not a credit card scenario. Does that make sense? So it's like refinancing a home, a mortgage. If you're at 6%, you can do a same 30-year fix at 4%. Yeah, that's a no-brainer to me, as long as you're getting what you're thinking you're signing up for. Right? Make sure you're not getting duped, right? Okay.
Well, going into a credit card, that's 0%, but that'll only last, maybe 6 months.
And 6
to a
months.
year.
This is more of a permanent thing as well. Right? School loan, once you roll it over at a lower rate, that's going to stay at that rate, correct?
Only if with 0% going into a credit card, using a credit loan.
So are you saying take the school and put it into credit card loan?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't do that.
For 0%, at a 0%.
At
and if you
0%.
keep doing
That's 6
it,
months savings and interest. I mean, it might be somewhat substantial, but it gets pretty convoluted. And I wouldn't worry about that. Are school loan interest tax deductible? Yeah, so depending on how much. So talk to your accountant. This is the kind of stuff you want to say to the accountant, I have this option. I can roll it over and do this, but what are the pros and cons of doing it? Talk to a financial advisor, see what they say. But I don't think it's a good idea to take a school loan, roll it to a credit card with 0% and to try to go back. Because then you got to keep rolling credit cards, and that's not a good scenario either.
Thank you.
Yeah. Over here.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I just have a question in regards to, I have a 19-year-old daughter who lives in my home in another state, and I'm at 4, 5, and 6, where it's paying off the house, working on retirement, as well as she's graduating with her associate's degree this spring.
Okay.
And I think the question is at what point does a parent start looking at the limitations on what they're paying for the education? I know you had thrown out some numbers
Yep.
and trying to maintain at less than 25,000 coming
Mhm.
out.
Yep.
So she's at that place where she knows my circumstances,
Okay.
as well as where do I set a boundary on
All
how
right.
much I'm responsible for?
Okay. I'll tell you what I've done for my kids, and this is what my wife and I have talked about, and this is our decision together for our kids. So for us, when they're in high school, we decided to buy a used car that they can learn to drive. So that was, some parents said, you know what, I'm not going to buy my kids a car. That's up to them. They got to work. They got to buy a used car on their own. If that's your conviction, by all means do that. It will help them. But my conviction was, I need to teach them how to drive. They need a car. I'll buy a car, but they're going to drive it while they're in high school for 2 years, because when they go off to college, they're not going to have a car for 2 years. They knew that from going in. First 2 years at Biola University, they live on campus, they're not going to have a car. Why? Because they have a car, they're going to become the designated driver, and they go all over the place rather than getting committed to that community, right? So when I bought a car for them, they knew this is their car to drive for 2 years, junior year, senior year, but afterwards they're leaving it behind for their next sister. So they knew that. So I decided to buy a car for them, so we bought it cash for $5,000. So it got bequeathed to the next sister, it'll go to the next sister, and then so on and so forth. Now, my oldest daughter just got married, and I've had a Suburban that's like 12 years old, and I asked her, so Joyce, I want to bless you with a car, but I'm not going to buy you a car, but if you want, we have 2 cars, I can give you one. Which one do you want? So I let her have one of the cars, so she took the Suburban. So she has a car, she just got married. I was fine with helping with her college tuition up to a certain degree, as long as she worked and she kept the scholarship. If she would have lost the scholarship, I would not have sent her to Biola. I would say, look, I can't afford more. Even if I could, I wouldn't. I said, because you lost that scholarship, you're going to have to go to a JC for the time being and finish out your education. They knew what was at stake, okay? So they finished their college education. They're married now. Now what I need to do next is to have a sit down with both Joyce and Jordan and say, look, I'm still supporting you a little bit financially. You're on my cell phone bill. I'm paying your insurance for your auto, right? We need to wean off of that. And my kids all knew, the moment you graduate from college, you're not moving back to my house. They knew hands down, they're not moving back, because I don't want a 30-year-old child living in my house with no future and living off of me. We're trying to build responsible kids who can be kingdom-minded and do things for God and go out and far beyond what we could ever have gone, right? So I told them, you're not moving back to my house. Well, she's married, so obviously she's not going to. So all of my kids know that. So I'm trying to wean them off of me. So for me, weaning them off is now that they're married, I don't owe any more college tuition for them. Weddings paid for, that I knew I needed to pay for. But now they're going to get off of my insurance, my auto insurance, my health insurance, and my cell phone bill. The moment those 3 things are gone, hopefully in the next 3 months, I'm going to give them a game plan and a window of opportunity. The moment that's gone, she's completely done, and I'm not responsible financially for them, unless I want to help them out and bless them for something, but that's totally up to me. So again, not a black and white answer. That's what we felt was the right way to wean them off. Some parent will say, you know what, college, that's up to them. I can't pay it. They're going to have to find a way on their own. Good on them. That's what they should do. But this was my conviction. I believed in the education so much because they come out of it with so much depth of knowledge, but also a love for God, that I wanted to invest in their life and set them up for success.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do I protect my home and finances from lawsuits? I'm in a singles business, and over 26 years, a few times people say they're going to sue me for stupid reasons.
Okay, so your clients or your customers are threatening to sue you for whatever reason, right? Okay, so you're asking is how do I protect my assets, right? Okay. This is not my forte. I don't know much about corporate law, but if you become a corporation and have certain types of corporations set up, it becomes more difficult for customers to pierce through the corporate veil to get to your personal assets. If you are a sole proprietor and you don't have a corporation set up, yeah, absolutely, they can come against you, sue you, and take your assets. So I would say your first line of defense is talk to a good attorney and set up the necessary corporate structure so that becomes the first layer of barrier, right? And then if they come against you with a lawsuit, they're going to have a hard time going through that corporate barrier. The second layer of defense is your liability insurance for the company. Make sure you have proper insurance for the company in case they sue you. You can pay either out of pocket if it's a small claim, or have the insurance company pay for whatever liabilities. And then make sure you are properly covered with the right insurance for your personal. So your auto, your home, all of that is properly insured. Because proper insurance isn't that expensive. To go from low limits to higher liability limits is not that expensive. So find a good insurance agent. First, find a good attorney. Get that set up. Find the right type of insurance agent that can help you with corporate insurance as well as personal insurance, and that will be your line of defense.
Thank you.
Okay? Wait, we need to find a microphone. Right here.
Okay, I needed to get your email address and also.
Email me at John. You can use John at Cottonwood, but that's not my normal email. It'll get forwarded to me, but use jkim@cottonwood.org. But if you use John at Cottonwood, that still works, but my technical email is jkim@cottonwood.org. Yes?
Okay, and my second question is, what is the name of the plan? Like if I'm saving for my kids,
I use what's called a 529 plan. It's a college education fund. I think there are other types of fund, but that's the one I use. Whatever I put into that later on, as long as it's used for college education, it's after taxes, by the way, so it's not tax deductible early on. So after taxes, whatever I put in, all the interest earned is tax-free as long as it's used for college education. And then the nice thing about that is you can set it up for each child, but I believe, double check with whoever is setting it up for you. I believe if one child doesn't exhaust it, then it can roll over to the next child. The condition is it just has to be used for higher education, so post-high school. Okay? Yes?
Oh, I just wanted to mention about maybe you want
The homestead
lady,
thing?
The homestead, yes.
I don't know much about the homestead thing, so you might want to do some research on that, but do that on your own about a homestead kind of act that where your home is protected from litigation. So you can do some research on that.